Hello guys, this is my first video PZ support by using 1000 years of death jutsu on the like and sub button on this channel. I will not leave any story in between like those other creators. Chapter 11. Consumed Xiao gazed at the two headstones that bore the names of her mother and father. They lay on a beautiful cliff that overlooked the majestic Himalayan mountains. It was her mother's wish to rest here when she died. The Shaolin master wondered how the blonde man had found this place, but she appreciated his kindness. "I'm sorry." His voice was full of grief. "They're gone, aren't they?" Xiao said, her voice empty. "Yes." "How?" He sighed deeply. "A month ago, someone unleashed a swarm of the mutated humans that we fought in the lab on the city." He clenched his fists. "And I hesitated. If I hadn't, your mother would have lived." The cliff was silent. The wind caressed Xiao's face and made her long hair flutter. Tears filled her eyes. "All this. All these lives. And now my parents. All lost because of me." "No, Xiao. This isn't your fault." Xiao gave a bitter laugh. "That's easy for you to say. I was the one who trusted the Grand Master and the doctor. They fooled me. It's not wrong to trust people, especially those who are close to you. Someone once told me that a teacher who can't earn their students' trust is a failure. This is the Grand Master's and the doctor's fault, not yours. Then we have to find the doctor. We have to make him pay before we deal with the Grand Master." He shook his head. "The doctor is already dead. Someone beat us to him, and I have no idea who it was." "So, we're going after the Grand Master now?" He nodded, his eyes glinting with cold fury. "Yes. The Grand Master has gone too far. He needs to be taken care of." "Are you sure you will be able to take care of him? The Grand Master is rumored to be around 400 years old." The blonde man laughed loudly. "Don't worry, I will be fine." Xiao frowned before nodding. "Very well, I will trust you, Naruto Uzumaki." "So, you already sneaked into Shaolin," Grandmaster Yu said, his eyes narrowing and widening alternately. "How cunning." "Ah." Naruto shrugged. "I didn't plan to come here in disguise, but I had a bad feeling about this place." He glared at the old man. "And I was right, wasn't I?" The Grand Master of Shaolin shook his head sadly. "You young ones don't understand the direction of the world." Xiao snorted. "Oh, and you do." "I do, and that's why I have to stop you both," the Grand Master said firmly. Xiao clenched her fists and was about to attack the Grand Master, but Naruto held her back by her arm. Xiao looked at the blonde man who gave her a negative sign. "Go. Wake up the others and make sure they're safe," Naruto said sternly. Xiao hesitated, but agreed. She nodded and left the room, leaving Naruto to face the Grand Master alone. "You're very brave to think you can beat me by yourself," the Grand Master said as he threw off his upper robes. "You're very foolish to think I'll take you seriously," Naruto replied with a grin. The Grand Master showed off his muscular and fit body, a result of years of hard work and training. He placed his left hand on his right shoulder and rotated it to loosen his muscles. Then he assumed a martial arts stance. He turned his body sideways. His right leg was in front and his left leg behind. His right arm was extended toward Naruto, his hand pointing at the blonde with all his fingers. His left arm was near his chest. Naruto tilted his head to the side, observing his stance. He adopted his own stance by relaxing his body and putting his hands in his pockets. "Naruto, let me ask you again," the Grand Master said with a wise tone. "Who do you think is the greatest enemy of humanity? Is it the gods? The demons? The devils?" Naruto touched his chin as if thinking, and then smiled smugly. How about this? I'll answer your question if you can impress me." The Grand Master looked at Naruto with a puzzled expression on his face. "You're 3 or 4 centuries old, right?" Naruto said. "You must have trained your body to the limit and learned everything about martial arts. Why don't you show me what you've got?" Naruto looked at the Grand Master with excitement. "So, you want to experience the magic of martial arts?" the Grand Master asked. "Something like that. I want to see how different your martial arts are from mine," Naruto shrugged. "Then I'll be happy to show you the wonders of this art," the Grand Master said with a proud smile. He moved like lightning, aiming his right hand at Naruto's stomach. But Naruto was ready. He caught the old man's hand with his own. The old man countered with a left-hand strike at Naruto's face, but Naruto dodged it with ease. The Grand Master tried 2 more strikes, one after another, but Naruto blocked them with his hands. They began to trade blows. The Grand Master attacked with his right and left. Chops, cuts, punches, and 2 finger strikes. Naruto blocked or parried them all. Naruto looked bored. His eyes followed the master's hands without trouble. He was too fast for the Grand Master to break his defense. But when Naruto thought he had seen it all, the Grand Master did something strange. The Grand Master faked a punch, but when Naruto blocked it with his forearm, the Grand Master changed his attack into a 5-finger strike, piercing Naruto's forearm. Naruto blinked as the Grand Master withdrew his hand. He stared at the hole in his arm, blood dripping from it. "Don't underestimate me so much, child," the old man said sagely. Naruto smiled eagerly at the Grand Master. Hey, you're so confident just because you pierced me. I think you're giving yourself too much credit, old man. Smoke rose from the wound on Naruto's arm and it healed in an instant. He made a gun with his right-hand fingers and pointed it at the Grandmaster. The wind in the room picked up speed. Survive, old man. The Grandmaster raised an eyebrow in confusion as he sensed something wrong. He slowly looked at his left side and his eyes widened in shock when he saw that his left hand was gone. Blood spurted from it like a tap. Huh, he thought. Ah, Naruto teased in fake sorrow. You got hit. Here, let me give you another chance. Dodge this time, okay, old man. The Grandmaster's senses went crazy and he dodged to the left. Just in time as countless slashes ripped the spot he was standing a second ago. The floor was shredded. The Buddha statue's head was sliced off and it crashed to the ground. Naruto's face twisted into a wicked smile. You dodged this time. Good, very good. He put his hand in his pocket and tilted his head. The Grandmaster clutched his bleeding stump. He felt his blood draining away. You're at a disadvantage with that arm gone, Naruto said with a bored look. We can't have that. I want you to do your best. The Grandmaster braced himself and got ready to fight. He blinked once and Naruto vanished. He blinked again and Naruto was back where he was. I healed that stump. The Grandmaster's eyes darted to his left arm and saw his hand restored. What? He was too shocked to speak. Naruto walked over to the severed head of the Buddha statue and touched it with his left hand. He looked at the Grandmaster from the corner of his eye and smirked wickedly. Dodge. The Grandmaster had no time to react as the statue's head flew at him. He raised his hands just as the statue hit him. The statue smashed through the wall and flew toward the training courtyard. The Grandmaster knew he had to get out of the way or be crushed by the head. He grabbed one of the snails that formed the Buddha's hair and pulled himself on top of the head before it hit the ground. The old man let out a deep breath and looked up at his office, which now had a huge hole in it. The whole temple had heard the noise and gathered around the courtyard to see what was happening. Hey, is that the Grandmaster? One of the students asked, pointing at the old man. Why yeah. But why does he look so worn out? Another student asked, worried. Are we under attack? Another asked, scared. Stay back, everyone, Xiao shouted. You don't want to get caught in the crossfire. Big sister Xiao. What's going on? But before Xiao could answer, a pressure fell on the courtyard like a hammer, knocking everyone down. One by one, everyone lost consciousness, no matter where they were. Only 2 people remained standing. The Grandmaster, who had somehow stayed awake, and Xiao, who had not felt the full force of the pressure. The Grandmaster clenched his teeth as he felt the source of the terrible pressure in his office. Soon, Naruto Uzumaki emerged from the broken wall and stepped on the rubble. His face was shadowed by his hair and his eyes glowed red, making him look like a demon. You were smart enough to understand our plan, weren't you? The Grandmaster screamed like a madman, spitting as he spoke. Shut up, old man. Naruto's voice was scornful. You won't find any mercy here. Maybe you should look for it in hell. You bastard. The Grandmaster brought his hands together and pointed his palms at Naruto. An orange magic circle formed in front of his palms. But before he could do anything, he saw a vision. A vision of his head being torn from his shoulders. He blinked and the vision was gone, replaced by Naruto Uzumaki's smug face looking down at him. The Grandmaster roared as the magic circle blazed. He shot multiple fireballs from the circle, aiming at his office. The fireballs hit the office walls, exploding and setting them on fire. The Grandmaster puffed, seeing the damage he had done. He was sure he had hit the blonde pest. Then he heard the sound of thunder from the sky. He looked up and his eyes widened when he saw clouds in the sky. But the sky was clear. Suddenly, it started pouring. The rain put out the fire that had started from the fireballs. Hey, old man. The Grandmaster snapped his head back and saw Naruto standing on the ground, unscathed. And what was even more surprising was that the raindrops didn't touch the blonde at all. Don't kill your students, will you? Naruto said with an annoyed voice. He raised a hand to fix his hair and then put it back in his pocket. And what's this? I thought you were going to show me the wonders of martial arts. Did you give up already? That's not very impressive, old man. The Grandmaster gritted his teeth in anger and shame. His 400 years of training and meditation were wasted. He ran at Naruto faster than a normal human eye could see. He reached the blonde. He opened his 4 fingers, except the thumb, of his right hand and aimed a knife hand strike at him. But he was too slow to notice the sinister smirk on the blonde's face. Just as his hand was inches from Naruto's face, the hand was sliced cleanly from the middle, from the tip of his middle finger to his shoulder. The flesh of his hand flew into the air. The Grandmaster's scream of agony rang through the Himalayan mountains. He collapsed on his knees and clutched his right hand with his left, unable to accept what he saw. It hurts, doesn't it? Naruto said smugly. I wondered what would happen if I added the heat of lava to the technique. In theory, it should seal the wound, but if it's too fast, it can be quite painful. The Grandmaster blinked and suddenly, he was kneeling on the ground, holding his right arm that was intact. The severed flesh was reattached to his hand and it looked like his hand had never been cut in half. Hey, weren't you going to fight me? The Grandmaster's head whipped back to Naruto, who looked annoyed. He stared at his right hand. What? He didn't understand. I'm sure my hand was cut off from the middle. There's blood on the ground. But it's still whole, and I still feel the pain. You giving up? The Grandmaster got up, ignoring the taunt, and got ready to fight. He dashed at Naruto again, faster than a normal human could see. He reached the blonde and swung his right leg at Naruto's head. But suddenly, he saw a vision of his leg being shredded into pieces. Horrified, he pulled his leg back and leapt away. What happened, old man? Got cold feet? Naruto smirked. The rain had stopped by now. The Grandmaster gasped, but then he felt something wrong. He looked down at his right leg and saw that it was gone. Blood gushed from his thigh like a hose. The Grandmaster's eyes snapped back to Naruto, who smiled innocently. He looked at his missing leg and lost his balance. The Grandmaster blinked again, and suddenly, he regained his balance. He looked down into his shock and terror. The leg that was gone was back on his thigh. Will you keep fighting? Naruto smirked. The Grandmaster was panting and sweating heavily. Even though he had no visible wounds, he still felt the pain of his arm and leg being cut. Blood stained the ground. He looked at Naruto and prepared to fight. He decided to keep his distance and he needed a weapon. His eyes scanned the weapon rack on the far right of the training ground. He turned and ran toward it at full speed. But he barely moved a meter when his head was sliced through his forehead. He only felt a brief flash of horror as his forehead was cut off. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his head. He looked back and saw the blonde menace behind him, his hand on his head. Don't worry, I fixed it, Naruto said coldly. Oh well, I guess the fun is over, Naruto said, letting go of the old man's head and rolling his shoulders. I thought you would be interesting. But this fight was nothing but boring. The Grandmaster looked up to find Naruto gone. He turned his head frantically, searching for the threat, but he saw nothing. Suddenly, he sensed someone behind him. He spun around, but he only faced a single purple eye with rings around a dot. 3 commas adorned each ring in a triangular shape, and one word echoed in his ears before he lost his sight. Tsukuyomi. The Grandmaster opened his eyes and saw a different world. He knelt on the ground and looked around, trying to make sense of the place. The sky was a blend of purple and black. A purple circle that looked like the moon had 3 rings around a dot and 3 commas on each ring. The ground was pitch black. Naruto Uzumaki's black and white figure appeared in front of the Grandmaster. Welcome to the world of Tsukuyomi, old man, Naruto said coldly. In this world, I am your god, I am your devil, I am your worst nightmare. What is this? Let me go, the Grandmaster shouted. Oh, for that, old man. Suddenly, the old Grandmaster was bound to a cross. All you have to do, Naruto said in a sinister tone, is survive the next 72 hours. The Grandmaster was sent through a hell of torture that felt like forever. His screams of pain and agony resonated through the world. Me, mercy, the Grandmaster gasped through his panting. Naruto tilted his head and grinned at the old man. But old man, you still have to survive 71 hours 58 minutes 23 seconds. No mercy until then. The Grandmaster's eyes widened in terror. The screams of utter despair, anguish and pain filled the world again. Naruto looked at the Grandmaster's unconscious body with disgust. Saliva dripped from the man's mouth. The old man had barely lasted 2 hours in the Tsukuyomi world, and he had dared to talk about a revolution. The blonde ninja lifted the unconscious master by his neck. Golden chakra surrounded Naruto's hand as he dove into the Grandmaster's mind. And what he saw made him frown in confusion. Something was wrong. Why would a deity do these things? And the memories seemed weird. It raised a bigger question. Who could do this? He knew about the memory erasing spell that the angels use. But no one would suspect anything if they read the Grandmaster's mind. The tampered memories looked flawless. The only thing that made Naruto doubtful was why a god would do all this. But then again, why wouldn't they? Naruto didn't know any of them personally, and the fact that none of the gods had interfered in the previous horrors in the human world left him with too much doubt. Suddenly, Naruto's eyes widened and he jumped back to the center of the training ground. The pressure in the training ground had increased tenfold. Naruto lifted his head and narrowed his eyes. On the terrace of the long corridor around the training ground, 10 different people stood. They all wore traditional Chinese clothes. They formed a formation that trapped Naruto from escaping. These guys. Naruto thought as he stared at the gods with a blank look. These must be the Buddhist gods. No human has such an aura in this world. Naruto glanced at where Xiao had been and saw her unconscious. Then Naruto felt the strongest aura enter his range. Naruto looked at the entrance to the training ground and narrowed his eyes at the figure coming closer. The figure looked like an old monkey the size of a child. He was about a meter tall and covered in golden fur. He wore a monk's robe and had prayer beads around his neck. His face was wrinkled and he wore a golden headband with a cloud-like pattern on his forehead. My. You have made quite a mess in our land, young man, the monkey said cheerfully. Who are you? Naruto asked, standing up straight. This was the same guy from the Grandmaster's memories and according to them, he was plotting something evil. Oh, my mistake. It must be my old age, the monkey said apologetically. My name is Sun Wukong. But you may know me as the Monkey King. Never heard of you, Naruto said, shrugging casually. The monkey Yukai didn't seem surprised. He smiled and said, that's a pity, young Uzumaki. But I need you to come with me to Tien. Naruto raised an eyebrow curiously. Oh, are you inviting me to a party? The monkey god shook his head and said politely, no, you are a suspect in the murder of the Jade Emperor. So, we need you to come with us to Tien. So, you're arresting me? Yes, I was just being polite. Naruto looked at the Monkey King with a blank face. So, the Jade Emperor is dead. Wasn't he connected to Yushi? Why didn't Yushi tell me anything? When did the Jade Emperor die? Naruto asked. 2 months ago, according to our investigation, the Monkey King answered. So, before I met Yushi. Huh? Maybe Yushi killed the Jade Emperor and tried to frame me. I haven't been able to sense his energy since the last time I saw him. Naruto thought. He said to the monkey Yukai, does it matter if I say I didn't kill that guy? Unfortunately, no. What do you know about Yushi? I have no idea who you were talking about, and I guess you won't let me see the body either. The Monkey King shook his head and Naruto chuckled and raised his hands in surrender. Fine, I'll go with you guys. We appreciate your cooperation, the sage monkey said. A woman flashed behind Naruto. She grabbed his raised hands, pulled them behind his back, and locked them with a device around his wrist. The device had various Sanskrit and Mandarin symbols on it. The woman held Naruto by his upper arm and a magic circle appeared under them. It shone so brightly that Naruto's vision went white. When the light faded, Naruto found himself in a dark hallway. Right to the dungeons. That's not nice, Naruto said flirtatiously. The woman snorted in disgust and pushed Naruto forward, making him walk. Come on, honey, Naruto said sweetly. Don't be so rough, Yano. He looked around eagerly. So, where do they keep the corpses? Around here? You're really bad at this, aren't you? The female said flatly. She had a sweet voice, though. Huh? Naruto smiled sheepishly at his female guard. You're trying to charm a woman into giving you answers. You sound like a novice at that. Naruto laughed nervously. Whatever you say. They soon reached a dusty cell. The woman approached the gate and unlocked it with a key. She opened the cell door and gestured for Naruto to enter. Naruto obeyed and stepped in. The cell was small and had a table, a bed and a bucket. You guys don't bother to clean this place, do you? Naruto asked, noticing the thick layer of dust on the floor, ceiling, bed and table. We never use these cells, the woman said. Lord Siddhartha made them as a prank with Lord Indra. Ah, that explains the dust. Anyway, stay here. You will be summoned for your trial in 3 days. I hope that Lord Siddhartha finds evidence that clears you of this crime. Otherwise, the outcome may be very grim. You mentioned Siddhartha. Who is he? Do not utter his name in vain. The woman shouted angrily. She took a deep breath to calm down. You may know him as Lord Buddha. Buddha. Good to know. I told you not to say his name so lightly, you rude brat. And who is Indra? The woman's eyebrows twitched in irritation at the constant disrespect towards the gods. He's the king of Hindu heaven, Mount Meru, the highest heaven in the hierarchy. Hierarchy? There's a hierarchy for heavens too? There is. The goddess said shortly before turning around and leaving. Hey, wait. Come on, tell me more about this hierarchy, Naruto yelled. But the goddess ignored him and left him alone in the dungeon. Naruto sighed and looked around the small cell he was in. The dust didn't bother him. He had grown up as an orphan and trained as a ninja, so he was used to dirty places. What shocked him was the fact that these guys had no clue how to imprison someone who left their prisoner alone like this and without a guard. Naruto wondered if they ever had to lock up anyone in a dungeon. Oh well, it didn't matter to him. He had done his job. He was sure the real him would find his way to Tien. The Naruto in the cell began to change. His face melted away. His hands lost their form, and soon, there was only a piece of wood on the cell floor. A portal opened next to the wood and the real Naruto stepped out of it. He looked at the wood with pride. I guess I can use wood clones with natural energy to hide my presence, he said to himself. He walked to the gate of the cell and touched one of the bars. His hand smoked as he used the Four Tails lava chakra in his hands. He melted the door in less than 10 seconds. They don't have much security here, huh? Naruto said to himself. Oh well, who cares? He had only one goal. To find the Jade Emperor's body and read his memories, to see if he could find anything about Yushi. As Naruto left the dungeon, he felt something new, something that surprised him, something he had never felt before. Naruto didn't know what was happening. He had never felt this way before. All his worries vanished in a moment. He felt light. His heart felt free, without any burden. His mind felt calm. He had never felt anything like this. He felt like he ruled the world, like he could beat anyone and win. At that moment, something darker took over Naruto Uzumaki's instincts. It wasn't hatred like Dark Naruto's, or bloodlust. No, it was something much worse. This instinct told Naruto only one thing. Consume. The Monkey King gazed at the beautiful place he called home. He stood on the balcony of the tallest building in Tien, also known as Nanda. This was the palace where Siddhartha lived. It had a traditional Chinese design. There were many other smaller buildings with the same design for the other gods who oversaw things in Tien. Tien was very different from the heavens of the other pantheons. In other heavens, there were special spaces for the pure souls to rest. But in Tien, the pure souls who arrived lived and shared the same space with the gods. This was Siddhartha's wish. He wanted the pure souls to interact with the gods. Tien was like a city with the pure souls as the residents and the gods as the leaders. The sage watched the busy streets of Tien, but his mind was full of questions he couldn't answer. How could someone kill the Jade Emperor? How could someone catch him off guard? He knew that the Jade Emperor often took a vacation on Earth once every decade, where he lived in a peaceful village and hid his powers. But it didn't make sense. The Jade Emperor was the third most powerful god in the Buddhist heaven, after Siddhartha and himself. Yet someone had killed him. The Monkey King was certain that no human was involved in this. It was rare for humans to kill gods. But then again, Yahweh had given the human race sacred gears that had incredible powers. But even then, only 5 sacred gears could kill gods. And none of the 5 wielders were near the borders of the Buddhist pantheon. That only left one person who could do this, Naruto Uzumaki. But the biggest question in the Monkey King's mind was, could Naruto kill a god? He was a human, right? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. He heard someone approaching him. He looked from the corner of his eye and saw one of the 7 gods of fortune, Ebisu, walking towards him. Did you find the Jade Emperor's body? He asked. Ebisu shook his head. No, we didn't. But we're still looking. Are we sure he's dead? He might have been living somewhere else. He might come back later. The Jade Emperor's name vanished from the records in the record room. His name is fading from the Buddhist scriptures in the human world. Humans have already forgotten his name. This is not a coincidence. We might have missed it if Amitabha hadn't gone to the record room to check something. And what about Buddha? Where is he when we're working hard to find the Jade Emperor's body? The Monkey King raised an eyebrow at Ebisu. Still holding a grudge, Ebisu? Maybe you should let go of your bitterness and you will ascend to a higher realm. He heard Ebisu click his tongue in annoyance and shook his head. Anyway, go and see if you can. Lord Wukong. Lord Wukong. The Monkey King looked behind him while Ebisu just glanced over the sage. They saw a beautiful woman running towards them. Pipashi. The Monkey King said slowly. What's wrong? You look worried. Pipashi Tien, the goddess of learning and music, stopped in front of the Monkey King. She breathed heavily as she stammered out, Why you? Why you have to see it, Lord Wukong? It's a disaster. The Monkey King looked at Ebisu through the corner of his eyes, while the latter shrugged. The sage turned to the goddess and said, Is it about the Jade Emperor? The goddess shook her head, looking more anxious. No, but something worse. Please come with me, Lord Wukong. All right, lead the way, the Monkey King said before he turned to Ebisu and told him, And Ebisu, go and tell the search parties to widen their search area. We need to find the Jade Emperor's body fast. Ebisu nodded and walked away. The Monkey King followed Pipashi, who turned around and ran down the hallway with the sage close behind. Soon, they entered the surveillance room that the Jade Emperor used to oversee. Since his death, the room had been empty. All the workers here had vanished as their energy was linked to the Jade Emperor's. At the center of the room was a large well filled with water. The goddess walked up to the well and pointed at it. Here, please watch this, she said nervously. The Monkey King approached the well and looked down at the water. It showed a television broadcast from the human world, a news report. And what the news anchor said made him sweat nervously. Dear viewers, we have received updates from China. Apparently, a catastrophe struck a city in China named Golmud a month ago. The news anchor said. A horde of unknown creatures resembling demons, for reasons unknown to us, appeared near Golmud and attacked the city. As of now, the death toll has been confirmed to be around 100,000 and it may rise even more. The Chinese government tried to suppress any news about this incident from reaching other countries, but someone leaked several clips of this incident. The Chinese government released a statement denying any involvement in this incident. Governments around the world expressed their concern over the situation and asked the Chinese government to investigate it thoroughly. Countries bordering China strengthened their defense, fearing this was some form of aggression by China to take over their land. Countries like USA, UK, France and Russia offered help in investigating this incident, but the Chinese government has not responded yet. This is the BBC. News outlets around the human world have been reporting on this incident since yesterday. The old sage's lips twitched nervously as he said, "That explains why Gautama had to leave so quickly. We're in big trouble for our incompetence." Paiposhi's eyes looked down sadly. This situation will only get worse, won't it? The Monkey King pressed his lips together. Jade Emperor and his helpers were in charge of the human world. Even when he took a vacation every decade, his helpers kept an eye on the human world. We never expected his death. But what's worse is that since he was killed, no one notified the memory erasers about this incident. So, no one erased the memories of the humans. What will happen now? Pippashi asked. This could cause more chaos in the human world. Maybe even another world war. The sage monkey gripped his cane tightly and closed his eyes. We can't do anything until our investigation reveals that someone mythical was involved in this incident. You can't be serious, Lord Wukong. This incident has no mythical connection. At the end of the day, a human could have caused this. So, we can't do anything. Because of the pact the gods of each pantheon made. Yes. The two were silent. They felt the weight of seeing the human world heading towards another disaster. Suddenly, something shook the whole palace and startled the two gods. What was that? Pippashi shouted in shock. Let's find out, Sun Wukong said as he ran out of the room. He appeared on a veranda and jumped out of the window. His tail caught the railing of the window and swung him up to the roof. The Monkey King flew up and landed on the roof just below Siddhartha's floor. The Monkey King looked around for the source of the shaking but saw no one. A moment later, Pippashi and Ebisu joined Sun Wukong. What just happened? I don't know, Sun Wukong said in a serious tone. Suddenly, they all felt a horrible and evil aura from above them. They looked up and their eyes widened when they saw Naruto Uzumaki standing on the roof of Buddha's floor. He had his back to them and he had changed his clothes. But something was very wrong with him. He had lost his bright energy. Instead, something vile replaced his energy signature. His skin tone had turned from tan to pale and white. His bright yellow hair had white strands in it that fluttered in the wind. He wore an orange jacket with black borders that flowed in the wind. He also wore black pants, a brown belt and black boots. What a nice place you have here, Naruto said, looking at the vast space of Tien. So peaceful, isn't it? His voice had no warmth in it. How did you escape, Uzumaki? The Monkey King asked sternly. But Naruto ignored his question and asked his own. Where is the Jade Emperor's body, monkey? I asked you a question, boy, the Monkey King said, stressing the last word. You're not going to answer me, are you? Naruto's voice was smooth, but emotionless. The Monkey King snorted. Youngsters these days, no respect for their elders. I'm in a bad mood already, Naruto said. I guess I'll have to find out in other ways. The Monkey King's eyes widened when a palm appeared out of nowhere in front of his face. The palm grabbed the sage by the face and threw him at least a mile away. I'll ask both of you this time, Naruto said, standing between Pippashi and Ebisu. Where is the Jade Emperor's body? Like we'll tell you, Ebisu shouted and was about to attack when his head suddenly flew off his body. Pippashi watched in horror as Ebisu's head dropped on the floor and rolled down to the ground. She raised her hands and covered her mouth in shock. She looked up and saw the blonde man staring at her with the coldest eyes she had ever seen. Do you want to die? Or do you want to tell me where the Jade Emperor's body is? Naruto moved toward Pippashi who backed away instinctively. He lifted his arm and was about to grab her by her neck when he quickly leaned back. Time slowed down for Naruto as he saw a wooden club flying past his face. Curious, he caught the club by its handle but as they say, curiosity killed the cat. The club kept going. It dragged Naruto along with it. Naruto hung in the air, holding the club with one hand. He saw where the club came from and noticed a muscular man staring at him from a tower on the far west of Tien. Naruto saw the club falling to the ground. He smirked and planted his heels on the ground as soon as he could. He used the club's momentum to spin around and hurl it back at the muscular man who threw it first. The club flew faster than before, making the man's eyes widen. A huge explosion shook Tien as the club hit the tower. Naruto looked at the crumbling tower with no emotion. He turned to where he had thrown the Monkey King. The Monkey King had crashed into a steep mountain, breaking it and burying him. But Sun Wukong was not easy to defeat. He tossed the rocks off him and burst out of the rubble, landing 100 meters away from Naruto. Lord Wukong. Pippashi cried as she landed next to the sage. Are you okay? Pippashi. What are you doing here? This is not a place for you. But Lord Wukong. No buts, go now. This place will become a battlefield. Will you be alright? The sage smiled at her reassuringly. Who do you think I am? Pippashi hesitated but finally left. The Monkey King glared at Naruto. How did he escape the dungeon? Did we misjudge him? I don't understand what happened to him. I guess he was exposed to heaven's natural energy. But that should have either made him hyper or knocked him out. Why is he acting like this? It's like heaven's natural energy and his own energy fused to create something terrible. Are you going to tell me where the Jade Emperor's body is? Naruto asked. Then, a dozen gods appeared in front of Naruto, forming 2 rows on his sides. They made a path between him and the Monkey King. You have to face us before you fight Lord Wukong, one of them said confidently. Is that so? Naruto asked, his voice showing no emotion. He knelt down and put his right palm on the ground. Let's see how you handle this. Suddenly, hundreds of trees grew from under the gods, surprising and trapping them. Flowers blossomed near each god's face and released spores. The more the gods breathed in the spores, the more tired they became until they fell asleep one by one. Naruto brushed his hand off. That takes care of the extras, he said and glared at Sun Wukong. You're next. I don't know what's wrong with you, the sage said, but I guess I have to teach you a lesson. The sage began to transform. He grew from 4 feet to 7 feet. His face smoothed out and he looked younger. His fur turned more golden. His body became muscular. His clothes ripped, showing a chainmail armor underneath. His cane changed into a staff with golden balls on both ends and a red body. Let's see if you can handle this challenge, Uzumaki, the sage said as he walked toward Naruto. The challenge is not for me. It's for you, old man, Naruto said with a smirk as he walked toward the Monkey King. The clash between a god and a ninja begins, Chapter 12. God versus Ninja. The current estimate of the casualties is almost 100,000, however, this number may rise even more. The Chinese government has denied any role in the disaster that has hit their city. However, neighboring countries are very anxious that this could be a provocation from China. China has also increased its security measures. NATO and UN members are closely monitoring this situation. Experts are also concerned that the problem may worsen due to the rising tension in the Middle East. Humanity may be heading towards a new war. A much worse war than the previous 2. A deadly silence filled the room as the occupants watched the news with horror etched on their faces. These people included Gabriel, Asia, Yasaka, Kuno, Miwa, Yasaka's secretary, and other yukais. Gabriel, one of those in the room, could only watch hopelessly. Beside her was Asia, who had worry written all over her face. This is not good. Not good at all. Yasaka's voice was grave. The last 2 times weren't good. This will be far worse, even for us. Will humans have another war? Kuno asked, looking at her mother nervously. We can't say yet, Yasaka replied worriedly. But why is this happening? Asia asked in a depressed tone. How did this happen? Wasn't Big Brother in China? You mean Naruto Uzumaki? Miwa, Yasaka's secretary, asked, glancing at Asia. What makes you think that he wasn't involved in this incident? My brother would never do something like this, Asia exclaimed fiercely, glaring heatedly at Miwa. Miwa. Yasaka gave her secretary a warning stare. Please do not antagonize our guests. She glanced at Gabriel and said, but it worries me too. Naruto Uzumaki goes to China, and something like this happens in 2 months. Lady Gabriel. Gabriel shook her head. I believe Naruto. If something like this has happened when Naruto was present in China and wasn't able to prevent it, then that means only one thing. And that is? Yasaka asked, raising a curious eyebrow. Something far worse is coming for us, and we must prepare for it. A large explosion rocked the entire Buddhist heaven. Dust clouds formed a dome at least 50 feet high, visible from the tall towers in Tien. A furry figure flew out of the dust clouds, facing the ground. The hairy figure had golden fur, wore chainmail armor, and carried a red staff with golden balls on either end. Suddenly, several tree branches shot out of the dust clouds, racing toward the furry figure. The furry figure used his staff to parry the incoming tree branches, but the more he dodged, the more shot towards him. Seeing that he would be overwhelmed by the tree branches, the figure used one of the branches as a platform to spring himself further away from the area. After ensuring he had created a respectable distance between himself and the branches, he allowed himself to land on the ground. A moment later, Naruto landed a few feet away from him. Running away so soon, Naruto said with a mocking smile, I expected better from you. HMPH, Sun Wukong snorted. I have met countless overconfident brats like you. Brats who try to challenge anything and everything but end up biting off more than they can chew. Naruto let out a chuckle. You may be a god, but for me, you are nothing but a small fish on a cutting board, ready to be sliced into pieces and cooked. I had no idea you were into cannibalism, brat. Even if I was, eating you would leave a bad taste in my mouth. Sun Wukong took his stance, pointing his staff at Naruto. Let us test if you are all bark and no bite. Naruto removed his jacket and threw it away, revealing a tight black t-shirt underneath. He took his stance with his right hand forward, forming a fist, and his left hand closer to his chest. His right foot slid forward. He smirked as his hand was engulfed in bright red chakra instead of the usual bright golden. I am going to enjoy punching your face countless times. In the blink of an eye, they both shot towards each other. The Monkey King slashed his staff horizontally, trying to hit Naruto's torso. But Naruto quickly grabbed the staff with his left hand. Pulling on the staff, Naruto forced Sun Wukong closer to himself as he went for a punch right at the god's face. But Sun Wukong grabbed his fist, not without consequences though. The punch was so powerful that Sun Wukong's whole body was shaken by it. What a heavy punch, Sun Wukong cursed in his mind. Both of them started delivering blow after blow. Sun Wukong mostly attacked with his staff, while Naruto used his hands. Naruto punched and parried. Sun Wukong slashed and deflected. But neither of them backed down. The more they exchanged blows, the faster they became. The force behind the punches was increasing exponentially, so much that the ground underneath them was buckling from the pressure exerted by the blows. Neither of them stopped their attacks. Each time their fists connected, shockwaves were released in every direction. Multiple mountains miles away were destroyed by the impact of their punches. Having gauged each other's power, they both jumped back, creating a respectable distance between them. However, Naruto gave no breathing room for the sage as he started performing hand seals so fast that his hands were barely visible. Fire style. Great fire annihilation, Naruto whispered, forming the horse seal. Bringing the tip closer to his lower lips, the blonde ninja released a massive wall of fire that raced toward the monkey sage at bullet speed. The Monkey King saw the wall of fire approaching him and felt himself sweat from the heat. He spun his staff like helicopter blades and put it before him just as the firewall hit him. After letting the fire rage for a minute, Naruto decided to stop. The fire had burned a large portion of the grassy ground. The Monkey King had escaped unharmed, except for some singed fur. You are full of surprises, Naruto Uzumaki, Sun Wukong said as his singed fur healed. Naruto's eyes widened in excitement as he dashed towards the sage without replying. The Monkey King spun his staff above him before pointing it at the fast-approaching Naruto. The staff elongated within milliseconds and raced towards Naruto. Naruto twisted himself around the staff and kept speeding towards the sage until he was taken by surprise when multiple spikes shot out of the body of the staff, piercing his body. Thankfully, none managed to hit his vital parts. One came close to his heart but missed by a few millimeters. The spikes retracted back inside the staff, and the staff decreased in size, leaving Naruto behind bloody. Naruto smirked joyously as his desire to overpower and consume the monkey sage grew even stronger. The wounds smoked and healed in an instant. This time, Sun Wukong dashed towards Naruto, effortlessly breaking the sound barrier. In the blink of an eye, the Monkey King was upon Naruto, his staff raised towards the sky. Without hesitation, the monkey sage brought the staff down, thundering towards Naruto. Naruto acted swiftly, opening his palm and channeling his chakra to form a vermilion Rasengan. The unbreakable staff met the unstoppable Rasengan. An explosive sound echoed through the Buddhist heaven, and massive shockwaves radiated in all directions, instantly destroying the ground and any surviving mountains. A crater with a radius of at least 10 miles was formed. Naruto didn't allow Sun Wukong to rest. He pulled his right fist close to his chest, enveloped in reddish chakra. A second later, Naruto shot his fist forward towards Sun Wukong's stomach. The Monkey King responded by bringing his staff down immediately, taking the brunt of the punch. Nevertheless, the punch carried enough power to send the Monkey King flying away at bullet speed. The Monkey King didn't let this deter him. He performed a somersault, planted his feet on the ground, and shot toward the sky. Looking down, Sun Wukong saw Naruto assuming the same position as before, pointing 2 fingers at him like a spirit gun. Sun Wukong looked on in confusion, wondering what the blonde brat was planning until he sensed something invisible approaching rapidly. He raised an eyebrow but observed the air being cut by a gigantic slash heading towards him. The monkey sage swerved to the left, narrowly dodging the slash as it raced toward the sky. The sage turned his head backward to see the slash impacting the clouds, forming a crevice as if someone had sliced them with a knife. A second later, he felt Naruto near him. Naruto seized the sage's slight moment of distraction to surprise him as he leapt toward the Monkey King. By the time the monkey sage had noticed Naruto, the blonde ninja was already upon him. Naruto reared his right fist, once again engulfed in bright red chakra, and thrust it forward. However, the monkey sage was prepared, catching the punch in his hand and forcefully throwing Naruto towards the ground. The blonde ninja somersaulted to position himself so that his feet would touch the ground upon landing, but the momentum with which he was thrown was still powerful enough to cause him to slide through the ground before coming to a halt. He raised his head only to see Sun Wukong make a steep dive towards the ground. He wondered what the god was planning as the god landed and created a crater in the ground in the process. A second later, a rectangular strip of land on which Naruto was standing was uprooted by the Monkey King with his bare hands. The Monkey King roared and threw the strip of land in the opposite direction of Tien City. Naruto stuck himself with chakra to the flying strip of land. His smile became even more menacing. The voice inside his head increased its incessant prodding, asking him to consume the god fast. Just as the strip of land was going to crash into the ground, Naruto jumped out of its trajectory. As he kept one foot on the ground, he shot towards the Monkey King, breaking the sound barrier and leaving a crater behind in the process. The Monkey King's eyes widened at the significant boost in the blonde's speed. This brat, he could not even finish his thought as Naruto was already in front of him. Once again, the two started dishing out blows at each other. Their hands became blurs. Wind started to pick up around them. Shockwaves were generated each time their blows connected. This brat, Sun Wukong thought to himself, isn't normal. He started going faster and faster, but no matter what, Naruto kept matching him blow for blow. He isn't just fighting. He is adapting and improving at the same time. Parry, 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 punch, punch, parry, punch. Parry, punch. It went like that for who knows how long. Neither Sun Wukong nor Naruto was ready to give up, but Sun Wukong was starting to realize that if this kept continuing, Naruto would start overwhelming him in no time. To Sun Wukong, a warrior wasn't one who never gave up. For Sun Wukong, a good warrior was one who knew when he was disadvantaged and knew how to improvise from there. Charging his arms with natural energy, Sun Wukong delivered a double punch to Naruto's stomach. Naruto quickly brought his hands down to block the punch, but his eyes widened as he was propelled away. Naruto was flung with such speed that he felt like a ragdoll, rolling through the ground until he managed to stop himself by stabbing his left hand into the earth. Once again, Sun Wukong lunged forward, his trusty staff poised to strike Naruto down. Without waiting to see Sun Wukong's plan, Naruto swiftly performed a series of hand seals, stopping at the snake seal. Whispers of wood release, deep forest emergence, left his lips as he forcefully planted his palms on the ground. Countless trees emerged in Sun Wukong's path, causing the Monkey King to halt and evade the looming foliage. Aware of the trees' neutralizing abilities towards other gods, Sun Wukong had no desire to discover their full potential. Unexpectedly, two tree roots shot out from beneath Sun Wukong, catching the Monkey King off guard. Evading them skillfully, he leapt high into the air, but he did not anticipate Naruto bursting forth from the ground. Naruto seized Sun Wukong's left leg, pulling the Monkey King downward. Relentlessly, Naruto rained down countless punches upon his face, following up with a bone-shattering kick to the Monkey King's chin, sending him soaring into the sky. Blood spurted from the Monkey King's mouth, yet that did not deter him. Gazing at Naruto's smirking face, his fury intensified. He aimed his staff at the blonde, his fingertips crackling with sparks. In an instant, a lightning bolt surged forth from the staff's tip, hurtling towards Naruto. Sensing the electrical energy gathering, Naruto prepared himself and expertly dodged to the left as the lightning bolt streaked by. He glanced at the aftermath of the lightning's impact, impressed by the vast area of evaporated ground. So, he possesses elemental attacks? Naruto wondered as his senses tingled, prompting him to swiftly lean to the right, evading multiple lightning bolts swooshing past his face. Let's see who triumphs in a clash of elemental abilities, Naruto thought, racing through a new set of hand seals. Lightning release, lightning beast tracking fang. Naruto's right hand crackled with lightning as it propelled towards Sun Wukong in the form of a fox. Easily evading the attack, the Monkey King swiftly closed the distance towards Naruto, while the young ninja commenced another sequence of hand seals. Water release, tidal wave. Naruto took a deep inhalation, causing his chest to expand. A torrent of water surged forth from his mouth, propelling a colossal wall of water towards Tien City. Swiftly dropping to the ground, the Monkey King directed his staff towards the approaching wave. Just as the wave approached, he slashed his staff horizontally, flinging all the water in the opposite direction. Peering upward, he noticed Naruto nonchalantly standing atop the undulating surface. So, this brat possesses far greater capabilities than I had initially thought, Sun Wukong contemplated as he twirled his staff around himself. He then aimed the staff at the ground, unleashing a multitude of spikes that raced towards Naruto, simultaneously pushing the water aside. Naruto descended towards the ground while executing another sequence of hand seals. He forcefully slammed his palms onto the ground, countering the wave of spikes with a wave of his own. The two spike-filled waves collided at the center, forming a forest of jagged rocky spikes. Wearing a wicked smirk, Naruto gathered chakra into his hand and delivered a powerful punch into the air in front of the spikes. A condensed bullet of air and force burst forth, tearing through the spikes and hurtling toward the Monkey King. In response, the Monkey King opened his mouth and drew in an immense breath, gathering an enormous amount of air in his lungs. Releasing a piercing scream, he shattered through the spikes, intercepting Naruto's condensed air bullet. The two attacks collided precisely within the forest of rocky spikes, triggering yet another explosion. However, this time, rocks and stones were sent flying in all directions, forcing both fighters to shield their eyes. After removing his hand from his eyes, Naruto found himself met with a fist hurtling towards his head. Reacting swiftly, he raised his hands to block the punch, yet he hadn't anticipated the force behind it. His eyes widened as his entire body trembled, launching him through the air, the distance unknown. Nonetheless, Naruto managed to anchor himself by digging his left hand into the ground, halting his flight. Raising his head, the blonde shinobi lifted an eyebrow upon seeing the Monkey King. That was because the Monkey King appeared different from before. His physique had grown more muscular and imposing, his fur had multiplied, and even his height had increased. Vibrating with power, his staff emanated an aura of strength. Yet, the most striking change lay in his face. It now bore a fiercer expression, with his eyes aglow with golden energy. Strangely, a golden light radiated from behind his head, seemingly originating from nowhere. Enough is enough, Naruto Uzumaki, the Monkey King stated firmly, his voice resolute. This has persisted for far too long. Calm yourself now, and we can engage in dialogue. With a defiant smirk, Naruto stood tall and pointed his index finger at the monkey sage. I no longer care for talking. All I desire is to consume you. Taken aback by this declaration, the Monkey King pondered, what? Wasn't he furious that we denied him access to Jade Emperor's body? What has caused this sudden change? Very well, Naruto Uzumaki, the Monkey King responded, his voice containing both sternness and a trace of sorrow. If you refuse to halt, then I shall personally put an end to your rampage. Unfazed by the god's words, Naruto launched himself forward once more. Materializing before the Monkey King, he firmly planted his left foot in the ground and aimed a punch at the god's face. However, Sun Wukong swiftly seized Naruto's arm and hurled him away as if he were a mere plaything. Naruto spun through the air and landed on his feet, immediately dashing forward again to confront the sage. Once again, he planted his left foot on the ground, preparing for a roundhouse kick. Yet again, Sun Wukong seized Naruto's ankle, but this time, he decided to be more brutal. He proceeded to slam Naruto onto the ground several times before launching him into the air. Ascending above Naruto as the young ninja's sword, Sun Wukong pressed his palm against Naruto's face and exerted his full weight, resulting in another powerful explosion as Naruto collided with the ground. Gripping Naruto by the throat, Sun Wukong dragged him across the ground, causing Naruto's head to strike various debris of mountains, rocks, and stones. Sun Wukong dragged him for what felt like miles before finally flinging him away like a ragdoll. Naruto crashed into the ground and rolled to a halt. However, he resiliently pushed himself back onto his feet, his eyes now even redder than before. Once again, he sprinted towards the Monkey King, his speed increasing with each stride. Materializing before the god, he drew his fist back, enveloping it in a vibrant crimson chakra instantaneously. The Monkey King readied his hand to intercept the punch, only to be taken aback by Naruto's next move. This time, instead of aiming for a punch at the Monkey King, Naruto drove his fist into the ground, instantly tearing the earth asunder. The god dodged the attack, leaping into the air as the punch shattered the ground, sending rocks and stones flying in all directions. He squinted his eyes, trying to spot Naruto among the debris. He took a deep breath and exhaled a powerful blast of wind that cleared the area, but what he saw next stunned him a little. Naruto stood still, unfazed by the debris flying past him. He pointed his index and middle finger at the Monkey King like a spirit gun. He's going to slash me again like before, the Monkey King thought, bringing his staff close to his chest. He decided to endure the attack and show the brat how superior he was. But he was wrong. Once more in this fight, Naruto had a different attack in mind, not a slash. The Monkey King's eyes widened as he blinked and saw a small ball of energy form in front of Naruto's two fingers. Before he could react, the energy ball burst into a beam, engulfing the Monkey King completely. Rasengan beam, Naruto whispered as the chakra beam faded. He smirked as he saw a huge hole in the cloud where the chakra beam had pierced through. He flexed his neck muscles and muttered to himself, "I hope he survived. I still need to devour him." Y. U Mu. Street. W. AQ. P. Naruto's eyes drooped suddenly as he felt dizzy. His mind went blank for unknown reasons, followed by a searing pain in the center of his skull. He felt something drip down his nose. He raised his hand and touched the space between his upper lip and nose. He moved his fingers away from his eyes and was shocked to see blood on them. What? Why? Naruto wondered, unable to comprehend what had happened. His mind seemed to be overloaded with unprocessed information. He sensed something above him and snapped his head towards the sky. He saw the distant figure of the Monkey King hovering. He squinted his eyes, curious about what the sage was planning. But he could never have anticipated what was coming next. The Monkey King hovered above Naruto, looking at the young man with admiration. He had been caught off guard by the sudden energy beam attack. But it had also allowed him to notice a subtle difference in how the blonde launched his attacks. When Naruto had used the slash attack, his two fingers, the index and middle finger, were slightly apart. But when Naruto had used the energy attack, his two fingers were pressed together. This difference might seem trivial to others, but for a fighter, it could make a difference in dodging attacks. The Monkey King had also seen Naruto stumble in his steps. From that high altitude, it was hard to tell why, but it was enough to slow down the blonde. He seized this opportunity and pulled back his right fist, which began to glow with a golden light. Doves of peace. Leaves of spring. Enchantment of music. The Monkey King chanted these random phrases, but with each chant, the light from his right fist grew brighter. His right arm muscles bulged. "Lord Buddha, grant me strength," he said, and punched the air towards Naruto. Naruto, standing below the Monkey King, could only stare in shock as he saw the air above him being compressed by an invisible force. It was so massive that it could cover a whole continent. The invisible force plummeted like divine judgment, and when it collided, the entire Buddhist heaven shook with the explosion. Dust and smoke flew in all directions. Tien City barely escaped being obliterated by the punch, and the buildings stood firm thanks to their strength. The Monkey King gazed at the dome of smoke and dust with a thoughtful look. He turned his head towards the ruined city and felt a pang in his heart. "I hope everyone is all right," he thought, when he heard a screeching sound, something unfamiliar to him. When the smoke cleared, a huge hole in the ground was revealed. It was so deep that the bottom was invisible. And then, out of the dark hole, a spinning blade of energy shot out, speeding towards him. "Is that a shuriken?" The Monkey King wondered, dodging the blade with ease. He did not bother to look back at the blade and focused on finding Naruto. But Naruto Uzumaki could easily conceal his presence. So, the Monkey King did not realize that the spinning blade of wind chakra was Naruto Uzumaki himself. As the blade whizzed past the sage, it exploded into a cloud of smoke, showing Naruto, who had strange markings on his face, pointing two fingers at the sage. Fingers that were slightly apart. Before the Monkey King could react, thousands, or millions, of slashes hit his body, slicing him, slashing him and ripping him apart. The Monkey King's regeneration went into overdrive, trying to heal as fast as the slashes wounded him. But that did not stop the god from spilling a lot of blood. How incredible, the Monkey King thought. The Monkey King's eyes were sliced, rendering him blind. His ears were severed, making him deaf. This is unbelievable, he thought unconsciously. The slashes continued to cut him and his regeneration tried to keep up with the healing. To have such mastery over wind. The slashes finally ceased, but the Monkey King was too weak to move. His wounds were still healing, but his right eye had recovered. Gravity pulled him down to the ground. As the Monkey King fell, he twisted himself to see Naruto hovering in the air, with the sun behind him, giving him a divine aura. It is like, I am fighting a wind god. Time slowed down for the Monkey King as he plummeted to the ground. I wonder, he thought, how are you so powerful? Are you a human, like Lord Siddhartha? But you have not ascended yet. Are you not a human, like all the other gods? The Monkey King felt calm and tranquil. He could feel his wounds heal. How strong are you, Naruto Uzumaki? Are you stronger than me? Are you stronger than Lord Siddhartha? Are you above every god in this world? A new surge of energy came over the Monkey King as his wounds healed completely. He stopped his descent and looked up at Naruto. I must stop you from going down this dark path, Naruto Uzumaki. Even if I have to sacrifice my life in the process. With that thought, Sun Wukong zoomed towards Naruto like a bullet. Naruto responded by forming a strange hand seal. The middle and ring fingers of both hands were straight, while the other fingers were curled inside. The tips of the middle and ring fingers touched each other. As the Monkey King approached Naruto, he was assaulted by countless slashes again. But this time, the Monkey King endured them and broke through them without hesitation. He appeared in front of Naruto and hit him with his staff. But the blonde ninja smirked wickedly and exploded into a cloud of smoke, surprising the Monkey King. Suddenly, the Monkey King felt someone grab him by the back of his armor. He turned his head and saw Naruto behind him. Naruto pulled the sage down a bit, so that he could wrap his legs around the sage's waist and face him. "Survive, monkey!" And with that, Naruto proceeded to pummel the god with punches so fast that his hands were invisible to the Monkey King. Once satisfied with punching the sage, Naruto grabbed the sage by his fur and threw him to the ground. Then, as the Monkey King flew downwards, Naruto formed a spirit gun with his right hand. A Rasengan formed in front of his fingers, which then erupted into a large chakra beam and aimed directly at the Monkey King. However, just before the beam hit the Monkey King, an aura surrounded the Monkey King. The beam hit the ground and the Buddhist heaven was shaken by another explosion. The beam created another crater in the ground, with the Monkey King lying in its center. The Monkey King managed to get up on one knee. Right outside the crater, stones rose from the ground, forming a humanoid figure that took the shape of Naruto. The Monkey King gazed at Naruto, who now had strange markings on his face. An orange circle with a dot in the center adorned his forehead. His eyes were rimmed with orange pigment. His pupils had a reddish border with an orange circle and dot in them. "You survived that? Good," Naruto said in an encouraging tone. "This form you are using, I assume it is your sage mode?" The Monkey King did not reply and continued to stare at Naruto while panting heavily. The effects of this battle were finally taking their toll on the heaven as well on Sun Wukong. And his face showed only one expression. Excitement. He placed his right arm on his left shoulder and rolled it to stretch and relax his muscles. "I thought you were going to test me," Naruto said smugly. "If this is your idea of testing me, then I must say, I am greatly disappointed." He smirked at the figure at the center of the crater. The Monkey King did not respond but continued to look at Naruto while panting. "Come now," Naruto said mockingly. "I am sure you still have some fight left in you. Give me the fight you said you would give me." Naruto grabbed the green Magatama on the bracelet on his right wrist. Pulling it out of the bracelet, he crushed the crystal with his left fist. The inside of Naruto's left fist started glowing brightly before the glow extended outward. It elongated and formed a shakuho. One end of the shakuho had a sun with 9 rings attached to it. The other end had a moon with 6 rings. Naruto took his stance. The small stones near him started floating due to the aura that he was emitting. "I have never been this excited before," Naruto smirked. "Let's begin round 2, shall we?" With that, Naruto dashed toward the figure. Grabbing the shakuho with both hands, he pulled it back right above his right shoulder. The sun of the shakuho started shining brightly as Naruto pushed his chakra into it. Just when Naruto was a meter away from the Monkey King, he planted his left foot on the ground, and swung the shakuho with all his strength. In response, the Monkey King pushed his tuki into his own staff, causing it to be engulfed in a bluish aura before swinging it at Naruto. Both of their weapons drew closer and closer, but neither met. There was an inch of distance left between them, but the clash had already occurred. Naruto's and his opponent's aura clashed through their weapons. And the whole world went white. Sun Wukong pushed the debris off of him and lifted himself off the ground. He searched desperately for his staff in the rubble until he spotted a red glint among the debris. He cleared the way and reached for it, hoping to find his staff intact. But his hope turned to despair when he pulled it out. He stared in disbelief at his staff, which was once unbreakable, but now snapped in two. He only had one piece of it. "And no," he muttered in agony, his hands trembling. He couldn't accept what lay before his eyes. This had to be a nightmare, right? He would wake up soon, right? Yeah, Lord Siddhartha would splash a bucket of cold water on him any moment now. "Giving up, already?" Naruto taunted, smiling smugly. "All of this destruction." Naruto ran a hand through his silky hair. "All you had to do was cooperate, and everything would have been fine." He pointed at the ruined city of Tien with his left hand. "That is your fault right there." "What do you mean?" The Monkey King shouted angrily. "What are you trying to achieve? One moment you want to kill everyone if they don't tell you where the Jade Emperor's body is. The next moment you say you want to consume me. Why fight? What do you want, Uzumaki?" Naruto's body tensed as his eyes widened. He felt something liquid drip down his nose. He touched the fluid with his fingers and saw that they were stained with red blood. Blood. Again? Naruto thought. Place. Aya. Say wa. Ku. P. Na. Ru. Tu. T. This is. Ent Y. O. U. Naruto clutched his head tightly as he felt someone hammering on his brain. That voice again. The voice was soft and serene. He had never heard someone like that before. Her voice had a softness similar to Gabriel's, yet very different. "Seems like this battle is taking a toll on your body, too," Sun Wukong said, getting to his feet and clutching his broken staff. "Let us end this battle here, Uzumaki." Naruto laughed heartily. Nice try, monkey. He wiped the blood away with his thumb and smirked wickedly. But I am far from being done. The Monkey King raised an eyebrow in confusion. Naruto's voice had suddenly distorted, as if two people were speaking from the same mouth. Uzumaki. Are you alright? Monkey King asked worriedly. Naruto smirked, his eyes wide with excitement. He raised his right hand and formed the half-ram seal in front of his face. No need to worry about me. Worry about yourself. Sun Wukong tied the broken half of the staff to his waist anxiously, not wanting to lose it and deciding to find the other half later. Suddenly, hundreds of tree roots sprouted from the ground, wrapping themselves around the Monkey King. Sun Wukong ripped them apart, but more and more roots coiled around him. Realizing that his efforts were futile, the Monkey King calmed himself down. He took a deep breath and relaxed his body. The tree roots kept piling up on him, but suddenly, all of them were shredded and sent flying away. Sun Wukong was engulfed in a bluish aura that puzzled Naruto, who watched with increasing excitement. Sun Wukong exhaled deeply and vanished. Naruto's eyes widened, unable to comprehend where the monkey had gone. He tried to sense him everywhere, when he felt the monkey right behind him. He turned his head to see the monkey, but before he could react, the monkey had already punched him on his upper right torso. He flew miles away, before he dug his feet into the ground to stop himself. He held his right side, which was bleeding. My ribs are crushed. Damn. His regeneration kicked in, but suddenly, he was grabbed by his head. Naruto kicked Sun Wukong's chest and pushed himself away from the Monkey King's grasp. The Monkey King let him go, though, and allowed Naruto to create some distance between them. Naruto landed on the ground and glanced excitedly at the Monkey King, who was walking calmly towards him. He pointed two fingers at the approaching god, as his slashes rushed towards him. However, the Monkey King did not budge, even as the slashes sliced him. Naruto's eyes widened, as his once all-cutting slashes did not do the expected damage. The Monkey King walked through the slashes, without flinching. Naruto increased the frequency of the slashes, but to no avail. The Monkey King tanked every slash, without hesitation. Naruto felt sweat trickle down his forehead. He could feel his heart racing, but he did not know if it was due to excitement or nervousness. He raced through hand seals. Fire release. Fire dragon technique. Multiple dragon heads made of fire appeared before Naruto and raced towards Sun Wukong. The Monkey King did not even flinch, as he tanked the attack, without hesitation. The dragon heads made of fire would impact the Monkey King and set his fur on fire, only for them to fizzle out and his wounds to heal the very next second. Naruto formed another set of hand seals, ending with the snake seal. Wood release. Wood dragon technique. This time, a serpentine dragon made of wood appeared behind Naruto, its eyes glowing a wicked purple. The wood dragon shot towards the Monkey King. The Monkey King raised his right hand and formed a fist. Just as the dragon neared him, the Monkey King punched the dragon's snout, tearing the dragon apart. Naruto felt weird. He opened his palm, as a Rasengan formed above it. A second later, a 4-point shuriken-like shape formed around the Rasengan. Rasen Shuriken. The Rasen Shuriken flew towards the sage at a speed faster than most could follow. Sun Wukong sent Tuki to his throat, filled his lungs with air and let out a loud scream that sent a blast of wind directly at Naruto and his Rasen Shuriken. The wind was so powerful that it changed the Rasen Shuriken's direction, causing it to soar upwards towards the sky and explode. Suddenly, Sun Wukong vanished from Naruto's sight and appeared before him. Sun Wukong grabbed Naruto by his head, lifted the young man high in the air and slammed him hard against the ground, creating a large crater. He lifted him in the air again and slammed him against the ground again. Sun Wukong continued to lift Naruto in the air and smash him against the ground until the ground was split in two. Sun Wukong then threw Naruto away like a ragdoll. Naruto spun himself mid-air and landed on his feet. He wiped a thin line of blood flowing down his lips and smiled excitedly. He pushed chakra into his legs and burst into a speed faster than he had ever achieved. Sun Wukong's eyes widened as Naruto dashed towards him like a lunatic. He spread his arms, as if to welcome the blonde man. Despite his hatred for this fight, he felt a thrill in his veins at this moment. At that moment, both Naruto and Sun Wukong had reached a state of unprecedented power. This fight had pushed them to a level beyond their imagination. The battle had transcended the limits of realistic speed and strength and entered a realm where only gods could exist. After all, to fight and destroy the infinite space, you had to be infinitely strong. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his hand, which soon burst into flames. Sun Wukong formed a glowing golden ball in his hand, which was compressed divine energy. Rasengan clashed with the golden ball. Both the fighters were engulfed in a white sphere, which then exploded, shaking the Buddhist heaven once again and sending both the fighters flying in opposite directions. The moment Sun Wukong regained his composure, which was just milliseconds after the explosion, he dashed towards Naruto. He appeared before Naruto in milliseconds and grabbed him by his neck. But unlike before, when Naruto had not even been able to react to Sun Wukong's actions, this time Naruto actually saw Sun Wukong appear before him. Naruto's 5 senses had finally adapted to Sun Wukong's powers, which were enhanced by Sage Mode and Tuki. Naruto had leveled up. His Sage Mode had reached a new stage. A much more powerful stage. Just as the Sage grabbed Naruto's neck, Naruto grabbed the Sage's neck. They punched each other's faces without mercy, blood spewing out of their mouth, nose, and eyes. Their faces swelled, but they increased the frequency of the punches. What is he? Sun Wukong wondered. No matter how high I go, he just keeps climbing the steep mountain I try to create between us. It is as if I am fighting someone with infinite potential, and that thought was heartbreaking. Sun Wukong, frustrated by the punches, flung Naruto above his head and tried to throw him away, but Naruto improvised by grabbing Sun Wukong's left hand with his own and forming hand seals using Sun Wukong's hand. Stopping at the tiger seal, Naruto placed his left foot on the Monkey King's face and pushed himself high into the air. He spun halfway, appearing upside down, and took a deep breath before spitting out a giant fireball that was easily the size of a mountain. Sun Wukong directed his right palm at the incoming fireball. The water droplets in the air gathered before his palm, forming a water ball of similar size, which he shot at the fireball. This time, a water ball and a fireball, both the size of mountains, clashed, engulfing the whole area in a cloud of steam. Sun Wukong blew air out of his mouth in the form of a scream, causing the steam cloud to blow away, but the moment his vision returned, he saw Naruto forming a Rasengan in front of his 2 fingers. Naruto let the Rasengan explode into a beam directed towards Sun Wukong. But the Monkey King reacted fast and shifted to the left, avoiding the beam in the nick of a second before he shot towards Naruto while flying right beside the beam. Naruto prepared himself to punch the Monkey King away, but the Monkey King had already planned far ahead. When Naruto had grabbed the Monkey King by his neck earlier, some of the Monkey King's fur had been left behind Naruto's body. And the Monkey King's hair could turn into clones of him. 6 clones of the Monkey King appeared surrounding Naruto and surprising him slightly. All of the clones tried to jump Naruto, who smirked viciously and spread both of his hands wide. Sun Wukong, who was heading for Naruto, saw the blonde and his eyes widened when he saw the familiar sight of Naruto using 2 fingers to form Spirit Gun from before, but this time on both hands. Wind Release. Cleave. An attestation of Naruto's control over the wind element. This technique was his own creation. He used his understanding of the wind element to create wind slashes so fine and thin that they were invisible and so sharp that they could cut a tiny droplet of water. But what truly made this attack formidable was that when Naruto used natural energy to power these slashes, the slashes became unstoppable and could hardly be stopped by anyone. Sun Wukong felt a sudden fear hearing Naruto's voice and had a vision of his whole body chopped into millions of pieces. In desperation, Sun Wukong came to an immediate halt and pushed himself away as far as he could. But even then, his left leg was caught in the technique's range and he was shocked when he saw his leg chopped into minuscule pieces that dispersed in the air like pollen. As promised by the attack, everything within the radius of a mile, from the ground to the droplets of water, was chopped into pieces. Sun Wukong landed safely out of the technique's range as his leg regrew thanks to his regeneration, but he felt sweat pool up in his forehead. His slashes are much worse than before. I know I am probably moving nearly as fast as lightning, but still his slashes managed to slice me up. Are his slashes instantaneous? Or do they move at light speed? To have this much control over the hardest element to master, he really is something else. Sun Wukong took another deep breath to calm his nerves. His eyes became more focused and the light behind his head shone brighter. It was time for him to use the greatest strength of a god. Naruto cracked his neck to relax his muscles before stretching his arms. The markings on his face became darker and his eyes glowed an unholy bright red. The 2 fighters stood still, gauging each other. Naruto was the first one to react. He stepped 1 foot forward and took a stance with his left hand forward and his right hand close to his chest. Sun Wukong readied himself as well, preparing for the moment Naruto made any sign of attacking. The air was palpable and tense, as if it could be cut by a knife. The 2 fighters stared at each other's eyes and then in the blink of an eye both disappeared. Naruto pushed his leg muscles to run as fast as he could. He felt like he was moving faster than light itself. His eyes followed Sun Wukong as they dashed through the almost destroyed Buddhist heaven. Sun Wukong kept his face neutral. Through the corner of his eyes, he glanced at Naruto, who was moving almost as fast as him. This time he was sure that he was running at nearly light speed, but for the blonde man to keep up with him was astonishing. In a few seconds, both the fighters had crossed at least 10 miles. Sun Wukong tried to surprise Naruto by jerking to a stop almost immediately in front of a lake. Naruto, who had not expected the monkey to stop so suddenly, ran a good mile past Sun Wukong over the lake before he stopped. The moment he stopped, all the water in the lake was displaced, emptying it almost instantly. A second later, both Naruto and Sun Wukong dashed at each other, their fists rearing back. And then they threw a punch at each other. Their punch stopped an inch away from each other, but their aura collided. Sun Wukong's ki clashed with Naruto's chakra. And suddenly the world went white for the second time. When Sun Wukong's vision returned, he found himself in a completely different place. He was in a large field where wind blew heavily. Confused, the Monkey King turned around and saw a tree so giant that its peak was invisible. "What?" Sun Wukong exclaimed in disbelief. "Is that the world tree or something?" He looked at the top that was hidden by the clouds. As he trailed his eyes downwards, he noticed something. Near the base of the tree, someone was bound by ropes. Sun Wukong trudged through the field and towards the tree. As he got closer, he recognized the bound figure. It was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, and he seemed unconscious. Suddenly, Sun Wukong found himself in the outside world. He realized that he had been thrown a mile away in the opposite direction, most likely due to the punches connecting. He glanced up and saw Naruto had also been thrown away by the collision. What was that? Is that somehow the reason for Uzumaki not acting right? "Hey, monkey!" Naruto called out. "Let us end this battle in grandeur. What do you say?" "There he goes again," Sun Wukong thought. It is as if two thoughts keep blending together in his mind. So, I guess, that Naruto I saw trapped at the bottom of the tree must be his true self. But his true self's anger keeps bleeding into whatever is currently occupying his body. Naruto smiled enthusiastically as he started going through hand seals. He was dying to try this technique. For some reason, the knowledge about the technique had appeared out of nowhere in his mind. Like he had been using the technique for years. "Get ready, monkey," Naruto said before laughing maniacally. "Sage art. Wood release. True several thousand hands." Sun Wukong's whole body went rigid as the ground shook violently, and his eyes widened in absolute shock and disbelief when he saw a giant Buddha statue with thousands of hands and made of wood grow out of the ground. The statue was at least 4 miles high and 5 miles wide. "Sun Wukong!" Naruto yelled from the top of the statue, "Here I come!" And then, the statue moved towards the Monkey King, shaking the ground in the process. Sun Wukong stared in shock, unable to comprehend how someone was capable of doing something like this. The statue was so big, it seemed that its head almost touched the clouds. This display of power confirmed one thing in Sun Wukong's mind. Naruto Uzumaki was no ordinary human. No, Naruto Uzumaki was a god in the making. Or maybe he already was. "I see how it is, Naruto Uzumaki," Sun Wukong said slowly, staring at the incoming giant statue. "In my naiveness, I mistook you for a simple brat. But throughout this battle, you have proved anything but. I have given my 100% in this fight. But in order to stop you, it seems like I will have to put 200% of my power in this fight." Suddenly, Sun Wukong was engulfed in a bluish aura. His hair stuck upwards, flown like flames. He joined his hands together in a prayer and stared with absolute concentration at the statue. Divine Arts. Domain Expansion, Hands of Justice. A giant spectral Buddha, as large as Naruto's statue, appeared over Sun Wukong. The spectral had an equal number of hands. Naruto laughed maniacally. "Sun Wukong!" Sun Wukong roared with passion. "Uzumaki!" And the two attacks collided. The explosion was so bright and powerful that every heaven felt its effects, and even the Egyptian heaven above the Buddhist heaven could see it. The earth also shook, especially near the coastal regions of Indonesia, Maldives and Japan. Gods rarely fought each other for a reason. Their powers could destroy the world. Fortunately, most gods maintained cordial relations and avoided conflict. But Sun Wukong had misjudged Naruto, and Naruto had succumbed to his Otsutsuki genes. Sun Wukong emerged from the debris that had accumulated over him after the two attacks collided and exploded. He had lost his right leg, but it did not matter as his regeneration began to restore it. Blood dripped from his mouth, nose and a wound on his head. He looked around and saw nothing but destruction. The horizon was a barren wasteland. Everything had been razed to the ground. Tien, the whole Tien, had turned into dust and rubble. The clash of the two overwhelming powers had wrought havoc never seen before. Sun Wukong hoped that the other gods had managed to evacuate the souls to Mount Meru, otherwise he would never forgive himself for what he had done. A few meters away from Sun Wukong, Naruto also came out of the debris. He was equally injured and had lost his right arm, which was also regenerating thanks to the godly healing. Once Naruto fully healed, he cracked his neck muscles. A horn grew from the left side of his skull, deforming it. The horn was thick at the base and pointy at the tip. It had a boomerang-like shape. His left eye turned purple with 3 concentric circles around a dot. Each circle had 3 tomos that rotated slowly. "I will end this here and now," Naruto said with a smirk and formed the snake seal with his hands. Sun Wukong braced himself for the worst. He took a stance that would allow him to react as quickly as possible. Yin-Yang release, Naruto said ominously. He released his hands and extended his right hand towards Sun Wukong. He folded his index and middle finger inwards and touched their tips with his thumb, while his ring and small finger pointed outwards. But just as Naruto was about to activate his technique, blood gushed out of his nose, mouth, ears and eyes. Huh? Naruto gasped as a copious amount of blood spewed out of every orifice in his face. And from within Naruto, a melancholic voice said, "I am sorry, Naruto." Gabriel gazed at the glittering stars, a pang of anxiety gripping her chest for the blonde-haired ninja who had captured her heart. The night was serene, a stark contrast to the dire events that had unfolded in just 2 days. All the others had retired to their beds. She had lingered with Asia until the girl drifted into slumber. Asia had been fretting over her brother and the fate of the world, barely able to close her eyes. Gabriel had soothed her with a gentle lullaby, a song of hope and peace. 2 days ago, the earth was shaken with a violent force, unleashing a wave of destruction across the Indian Ocean. Japan and Indonesia had borne the brunt of the impact, facing a tsunami that rivaled the one that had struck Japan in 2011. Countless lives had been lost, and Gabriel could only watch helplessly as the humans of this accursed world suffered. She had attempted to reach Michael, but Raphael had answered in his place. Raphael had told her that even their heaven had felt the tremors, and that they had originated from the Buddhist heaven. What had transpired in China? The news reports, the quakes, the tsunami, they all seemed to be connected somehow. And Gabriel hated to admit it, but she had a nagging suspicion that Naruto was involved in this, which filled her with dread. "Naruto. I hope you are all right," Gabriel whispered. She turned to leave for her room when a portal materialized in front of her. Her eyes widened in shock as a stunning woman emerged from it. She was a statuesque beauty, with curves that defied gravity. Her bosom was ample and generous, dwarfing Gabriel's own, but her hips were slightly narrower. Her raven hair cascaded down her back, reaching her waist. She clad herself in a scanty red blouse that barely concealed her cleavage and a flowing sarong that revealed her shapely legs. Following her was another woman, younger but equally alluring. She donned a loose kimono that left little to the imagination, displaying her ample bust and her long, slender legs. Her dark hair was pulled back in a high ponytail. The woman's face was devoid of emotion. She tossed her hair and spoke to the archangel. "You must be Gabriel. I am Ophis. Do you have a moment to talk?" Gabriel felt a surge of fear. Why did the most powerful being in the universe want to talk to her? Had she offended the being somehow? She was certain she had not. And why did Ophis look different? Wasn't she supposed to be a child? Why did she look like a grown woman? Gabriel swallowed hard and replied, "Why yes. How could she refuse her anyway?" Ophis looked over her shoulder and waved her hand. Something floated out of the portal both Ophis and her companion had come from. Gabriel's eyes grew wider as the figure became more visible. It was Naruto, the blonde-haired ninja she loved. "Naruto." Gabriel ran towards the lifeless body of Naruto. She reached him and cradled his face in her hands. "Naruto, Naruto, answer me." She shook him, ran her fingers through his hair, pinched his cheek, but nothing worked. She pressed her ear to his chest and felt a wave of relief when she heard his heartbeat. She lifted her head and looked at the dragon god with tearful eyes. What happened to him?" she sobbed. "That is something we don't know either," Ophis said, "but don't worry, he is alive." Gabriel was extremely relieved hearing that. She gazed at Naruto's face, which was calm and peaceful. She smiled through her tears and kissed him softly on the forehead. "Don't worry. I will make sure you are all right, Naruto." In the Buddhist heaven, a semblance of order had returned. The land was scarred and ravaged, but tents and souls dotted the landscape, working tirelessly to restore the heavenly realm. One tent stood apart from the rest, sheltering the most powerful man in Buddhist heaven. He was a towering figure, with a muscular physique. He wore a tank top and glasses, along with robes that wrapped around his waist and hands. A bindi marked his forehead, and his light green hair, dark at the sides, was pulled back in a traditional style, adorned with a golden crown. He also wore earrings, rectangular glasses, and had long earlobes. He was the enlightened one, Gautama Siddhartha, the great Buddha, and his face was etched with sorrow. His grief did not stem from the ruin of the Buddhist heaven, for it could be rebuilt anew. His grief was for his friend, Sun Wukong, who lay in a coma. He did not know what had happened in the Buddhist heaven while he was away, what had sparked such a cataclysmic battle. He had been told that Sun Wukong had arrested Naruto on suspicion of killing the Jade Emperor, and that Naruto had resisted violently. That was the official story. But perhaps there was more to it than he knew. As he looked at the motionless body of the Monkey King, he realized that he had been right to be wary of Naruto Uzumaki. He had never seen Naruto Uzumaki as a normal human, as many in his pantheon did, Sun Wukong among them. That was why he had warned them to keep their distance from him. But Sun Wukong was too impetuous for his own good. And to push a god to this state was no small feat. He knew that Sun Wukong was stronger than most gods. But Naruto Uzumaki had not only wounded him, but put him in a coma. It was only by sheer will that Sun Wukong had stayed conscious long enough to wait for him and tell him that Naruto Uzumaki was innocent, and that something was wrong with him. He had collapsed after asking him to help him in any way he could. Lord Siddhartha. He is innocent. Something was wrong with him. There is something inside him that makes him dangerous. I know if you help him, he will be all right. Those were his exact words. At the time, he had not understood who Sun Wukong meant by he, but now, after learning the details from others, he realized that Sun Wukong was talking about Naruto. Siddhartha rose from his chair and walked out of the tent. He surveyed the ongoing reconstruction. He would have to thank Shiva for sending Vishwakarma to assist in rebuilding Tien. Suddenly, an eagle's cry pierced the air, high above them. Siddhartha looked up and his eyes narrowed as he spotted a golden eagle flying towards him. Zeus. He muttered, but there was no anger in his voice. A soft, melodious voice hummed a slow tune in his ears. He groaned, too exhausted to open his eyes. A gentle hand caressed his hair, soothing his nerves and easing his stress. He felt light and happy, and slipped into a peaceful sleep. When he woke up again, the voice was still humming, but a different tune. He tried to open his eyes and see who it was. He hoped to see the face of his beloved. But as his eyes opened and met the gaze, he saw a pale, milky white face with milky eyes looking down at him. He gasped, his eyes widening in shock and confusion. He sprang up, standing upright. He turned to the woman who had held him in her lap. Why you? What? Where am I? The woman smiled calmly. Welcome to the pure world, Naruto. Naruto stared at her in disbelief. Then he noticed something else. They were sitting under a tree with a trunk so thick, it dwarfed even the 10 Tails tree form. He had only one question in his mind, which he blurted out. What is going on? Chapter End. Chapter 13. The Omnipotent City. So, Naruto has returned, just unconscious, with Ophis and Kuroka bringing him in? Gabriel heard the exasperated voice of her brother's hologram speak, generated by one of the beads in the wristband she wore on her right wrist. Yes, something along those lines, Gabriel replied, her concern evident in her voice. I see. Michael's hologram paused, adopting a thoughtful expression. I suppose Ophis and Kuroka couldn't shed light on what caused him to fall into a coma, am I correct? Gabriel nodded. They have no idea. We still need to interrogate Kuroka about what led to her finding him and taking him to Ophis, but I did inquire if they had any prior knowledge of the cause. And let me guess, they suspect his involvement in what transpired in the Buddhist heaven, don't they? Michael asked in a serious tone. Gabriel frowned as she responded. Kuroka doesn't seem to suspect anything. However, Ophis, her frown deepened. She believes Naruto was somehow involved. Michael's hologram released a sigh. This truly is unprecedented. He rubbed his forehead. I really need to tell Naruto to steer clear of trouble. If he keeps this up, I might lose all my lovely blonde hair. Her brother's humor managed to ease some of her worry, eliciting a giggle. I don't think he actively seeks out trouble. Michael's hologram rolled his eyes. Considering his behavior, one might think otherwise. The hologram's face turned serious. However, Gabriel, if Naruto wakes up, please ask him to be cautious. Why? Is something wrong? Michael's hologram deliberated on his words before responding. Zeus has called for a meeting of the pantheons. If we know anything about Zeus and if he suspects or somehow learns of Naruto's involvement in the Buddhist heavens incident, then he will do everything in his power to see Naruto killed, Gabriel finished for Michael. Michael's hologram nodded grimly. I dislike it and will do my best to keep Zeus off his back, but I can't make any guarantees. So, please, tell him to be cautious. I will, brother. Michael's hologram smiled brightly. Now, I won't hold you off anymore so that you can go tend to Naruto. I will see you later, sister. Bye, brother. Kuroka was bored out of her mind. Naruto Uzumaki had gone to help the Chinese chick he had rescued from that lab. He had whisked her away to his home in Finland and instructed her to stay there. Of course in her cat form. Not that he knew she was the cat he loved spoiling. Kuroka had hoped to find some clues about the blonde in his house, but she was disappointed. The only thing she had discovered was a headband with the kanji for shinobi etched on a metal plate. Nothing else. Living on an island was even more dull. She had no fun activities to do. She sprawled on the couch in the living room, browsing the smart TV for a show that could kill some time. She had to admit, Naruto had a good sense of style when it came to his house. The mansion was too big for one person, but she didn't mind. She enjoyed the comfort of the plush couch. Oh, I wonder how LeFay is doing, Kuroka thought. Sharon. Do you still hate me? Will I ever get the chance to tell you the truth before I die? But, would you even believe me if I did? She let out a bitter laugh. Probably not, and I don't think I deserve your forgiveness anyway. She shook off the gloomy thoughts and turned her attention to the blonde. She remembered the times she had spied on him in her cat form when he was taking a shower. His body was sculpted like a Greek god. His frame was muscular and V-shaped. His arms were veiny and strong. The shiny blue eyes that looked right through you and at your soul. The taut butt and tight muscles on his leg. Ever since the first day she had spent with the blonde, she had felt her desire for him grow each day. It was like something in her mind kept telling her to jump the blonde and have her way with him. She, like all other devils, was governed by the 7 sins. But since she was a stray devil, the sins had a much greater hold on her. Every devil was controlled by the 7 sins to some extent, but then there were some that influenced them more, which were considered the main sins. Her main sins being lust and greed, while all the other sins influenced her a little. Combine it with her feline nature. Her lust seemed to only be fueled even more by his presence for reasons that defied her. Suddenly, a vision of her and Naruto naked in a field appeared in her mind. She was on her knees like an obedient slut while the blonde stood over her like a stud, his man-meat standing tall and proud. The blonde grabbed her by her hair and pulled her up a little while bending himself so that their faces were an inch apart. The blonde stared at her with such intensity that it made her blush and become wet downwards. She was prepared to be ravaged like a whore. Kuroka felt a blush appear to her face at the vision and involuntarily felt herself get wet downstairs as she imagined Naruto run his nimble fingers on her body and lick her thoroughly. She unconsciously loosened her already loose kimono and got naked. Her hand drifted downwards and started to stroke in a circular fashion. Her breath hitched, and the more she thought of the dirty, naughty, raunchy and probably some of the most extreme kinks the two of them would be performing, the faster her stroking became. She was close. Very close. Her breathing became quicker and she was about to reach that final point, that bliss. When suddenly the room trembled as an earthquake struck. Kuroka gasped and sat up. An earthquake? In Finland? She wondered, perplexed. She got up, ignoring her nudity, and hopped towards the window. She looked out the window and saw the birds flying in panic. What's going on? The Neko went back to the couch and sat down, but being careful to sit on her kimono, so as not to get the costly couch dirty due to her naked butt. She felt grumpy that she was interrupted in her activity. She leaned back on the couch and was about to return to what she was doing before when suddenly, the whole house shook again, this time more violently than before. She yelped in alarm as the house shook again, more violently than before. What is up with Mother Earth today? She leisurely walked to the kitchen to get some water, not caring to cover herself. She grabbed a glass and filled it with water from the tap. She gulped down the water and rinsed the glass before putting it back. She didn't want to dirty any glass she used. She strolled back to the couch, but was startled when a portal appeared in the room. Kuroka was so stunned that she froze on the spot. The portal was right between her and the couch, blocking her way to get her kimono. She saw Naruto emerge from the portal, facing away from her. Naruto stumbled out of the portal, his horn retracting into his skull. As the portal vanished, Naruto collapsed on his knees. Gabriel. Asia. He whispered before he lost consciousness. Wah. Kuroka uttered. She dashed to the blonde who was lying motionless on the floor. She flipped him over, her eyes widening when she saw him bleeding heavily from every opening on his face. What the hell happened to you, blondie? She asked, bewildered. Yasaka fixed a deadpan stare upon the Nekomata. Gabriel, visibly blushing, felt acute discomfort while gazing at the Nekomata. Asia, flushed from head to toe, emitting steam from her ears. Ophis maintained a stoic expression, observing the scene without any discernible emotion. Yasaka, in an exasperated tone, inquired, did you truly find it necessary to delve into such explicit details about your personal pleasures? Kuroka nonchalantly shrugged her shoulders. You sought every detail. I tried providing the censored version. However, you, she gestured at Yasaka, desired complete disclosure. In light of your status as a devil fugitive, your presence here was understandably unwelcome, Yasaka asserted sternly. Why, then, is Lady Ophis not surrounded? Kuroka inquired. Despite accompanying the dragon god, she found herself encircled by guards while the dragon god stood beside Yasaka, uninterested in the happenings around her. It seemed unjust. Yasaka responded with a deadpan expression. Rolling her eyes sarcastically, Kuroka remarked, of course, they wouldn't stand a chance against her. The embarrassed guards blushed even more profusely. They currently occupied a spacious traditional Japanese room within Yasaka's shrine. A futon held Naruto's unconscious form, with Gabriel on his left and Asia on his right, both sitting on their knees. Yasaka positioned herself by the entrance, Naruto's unconscious body behind her. Kuroka stood before her, surrounded by guards, while Ophis, standing beside Yasaka, directed her gaze towards Gabriel, who tended to Naruto. A glint of curiosity shone in Office's usual dull eyes. Arms folded beneath her sizable bust, Yusaka asserted, "I trust you won't exceed your bounds during your stay, Kuroka?" Yeah, I won't," Kuroka responded flippantly. Kuroka. Okay. No need to get your non-existent panties in a bunch, Kuroka retorted sarcastically. Yusaka sighed in exasperation before turning her gaze to the dragon god, who stood patiently beside her, quietly observing Gabriel. "Lady Office, though it is not within my purview to make requests of you, I implore you not to cause undue trouble." Office tilted her head slightly, regarding Yusaka with an emotionless expression. "Rest assured, little vixen. As long as he remains under your care, you need not worry about any issues from me." Yusaka nodded, exhaling another sigh of concern. At present, her only hope was that sheltering Naruto wouldn't bring trouble to her pantheon. She had already informed Lady Amaterasu, who promised a personal visit once pressing matters were resolved. In a commanding tone, Yusaka directed the guards, "You may leave us." Observing their hesitancy, she offered a reassuring smile. "Fear not. I will handle things." The guards bowed and exited the room, leaving the females alone with the unconscious male. Yusaka joined Gabriel beside Naruto, dedicating herself to his care. While some might question why she aided someone outside her pantheon, who had not contributed in any way and potentially posed unknown troubles, her answer was simple. She couldn't turn away someone injured and in a coma at her doorstep. Humans might term it humanity. She called it morality. Office located a wooden chair in the room, summoning it with a wave of her hand. Gracefully, she positioned it near the blonde's head, and sat on it while crossing her legs in a sensual manner. Her sarong rode up, revealing long, smooth thighs and almost a hint of what laid beyond them. Kuroka, visibly relieved, approached Asia, causing the girl discomfort as she sat beside her with legs sprawled to her left and supporting her upper body on her right hand. Her sitting pose caused her kimono to rise, unveiling a pair of silky, long legs. "You're quite cute," Kuroka remarked, grinning like a predator while gazing at Asia. "Watching you desperately trying to heal Blondie here with your sacred gear, I just wanted to gobble you down." Asia squirmed, feeling both embarrassed and awkward under Kuroka's predatory gaze. Yusaka giggled, replacing the warm cloth on Naruto's forehead. "She's right. Your earnest attempts to cure Naruto were both endearing and pitiable." Little one didn't realize he was already healed and was in a coma, Office added with an expressionless tone. "Give her some leniency. She must have thought that her sacred gear could wake him up." "Ooh," Asia moaned in dejection. An hour earlier, Office and Kuroka had arrived through a portal with Naruto. Thanks to Office's ability to suppress her presence and magic, the intrusion initially went unnoticed. Only when Gabriel sought Yusaka's help did the guards discover the intruders. The Archangel had summoned Asia, who hurried to Naruto's side. Seeing bandages around his head, she attempted to use her sacred gear, unaware that Naruto was already healed and that her sacred gear would not be able to wake someone from coma unfortunately. "Don't feel bad, Asia. They're right," Gabriel reassured her with a smile. Kuroka affectionately patted Asia's head before grinning and saying, "Yeah, don't feel bad. You're just too cute to resist. I'd love to smother you between my breasts, NYA." Kuroka's remark induced a furious blush in Asia, a disapproving headshake from Gabriel, and a sigh from Yusaka. In any case, what transpired after Naruto's arrival? Yusaka inquired, exchanging the wet cloth on Naruto's head for a fresh one. Kuroka glanced at the ceiling, pointing upward. "I attempted skin-to-skin healing magic," she disclosed, eliciting a blush from Asia, who comprehended the nature of that particular healing technique. Kuroka's expression turned into a frown as she continued, however, for some reason, it did not work. "I tried some other magic spells, but none seemed to have any effect." "That was due to his natural defense," Office interjected in her usual neutral tone. "Natural defense?" Asia questioned in confusion. "It's a passive defense mechanism the body adopts to protect itself from unwanted interference," Office clarified. "Quite common among those with hyper-regeneration or built-in healing techniques. The passive shield activates when the mind is unconscious, working in the background to safeguard the host from various threats." "Why did it reject my healing magic, then?" Kuroka inquired, raising an eyebrow in confusion. Surprisingly, it was Gabriel who answered. "Despite being healing magic, your magical core still bears the essence of a devil, correct? It's plausible that Naruto's natural defense identified it as a negative force and consequently rejected it." "Very close," Office affirmed after Gabriel's explanation. "Except, Naruto's defense even rejected my magic. It seems his natural defense operates indiscriminately. However, we have yet to test divine magic." Recalling Naruto's arrival in Italy, Gabriel mused on the instances when his injuries healed through his innate regeneration. She couldn't recall an instance where divine magic was employed for his healing. "If you don't mind my asking," Yusaka interjected, turning her attention to Office, "how did you eventually manage to heal him?" Ophis nonchalantly shrugged. I simply powered through it. The collective surprise of everyone in the room resonated. No matter what, a passive natural defense will always have limits. I simply started healing him beyond the confines of his natural defense to counteract its rejection of my magic. So, it's akin to if his defense had the capability to reject healing magic at, let's say, 1000 cells per millisecond, and you healed him at a rate of 1200 cells per millisecond? Yusaka attempted to simplify Ophis' explanation. Something like that, Ophis affirmed with a slight nod. Wouldn't that result in an actual healing rate of only 200 cells per millisecond? Kuroka attempted to deduce. That's precisely why it took so long to heal not only his brain but his entire body, Ophis explained. Yusaka observed the unconscious blonde, wrapped in bandages from head to toe. It makes you wonder what exactly happened in China to cause this to him. He already seems like a powerful individual. My guess is that he fought a god, Kuroka exclaimed with excitement, covering her mouth with her hands. Yua. It would be so cool if he managed to fight and defeat a god before falling unconscious, she expressed, fangirling. Gabriel had no words as she stared at the Nekomata with a sweat drop. Is she always like this? Yusaka inquired, looking at Ophis. I have only known her for a little more than a year, Ophis replied, frowning slightly, but she has never acted like that before. A peaceful silence settled in the room as Yusaka, Gabriel, and Asia attended to the unconscious Naruto. Kuroka checked on Naruto occasionally, staring at her nails. Ophis sat in her seat, scrutinizing Yusaka and Gabriel for reasons known only to her. Say, Gabriel, Kuroka's curious voice broke the silence. Yes? Gabriel looked at Kuroka, awaiting her continuation. You are an archangel, and I am a lowly devil, right? Kuroka questioned in a curious tone before asking. Then why am I not burning right now? No pains, no headaches, no holy fire consuming me. Why? Frowning at the question, Gabriel answered, I suppose you should thank Lady Ophis for that. She must have cast a spell on you to shield you from my divine energy. I have not, Ophis interjected, looking down at Gabriel. You are merely suppressing your divine magic to ensure no leakage, so Kuroka doesn't experience any discomfort in your presence. Archangels like yourself have the ability to control their divine energy to the very atom. Don't sell yourself short. Gabriel looked away, blushing in embarrassment. Kuroka grinned broadly. Not one to take credit, are you? No doubt, Blondie here seems utterly smitten with you. You two are a match made in heaven. Gabriel blushed even more, smiling shyly. Well, I couldn't treat the one who helped my friend here poorly, right? Friend, you say, Kuroka remarked saucily. So, you won't mind if the Blondie and I had a whole night of passion, filled with spit-exchanging French kisses and bed-breaking mating exercises. She finished with a grin. Kuroka hoped Gabriel would turn into a blushing and sputtering mess, considering how innocent the archangel portrayed herself to be. However, Gabriel did not respond the way she had hoped. The archangel smiled and said, her tone holding not even an ounce of irritation or jealousy. If that is what Naruto desires, then who am I to stop? Kuroka looked surprised by the response. She had no idea what to think of that statement. She could be telling the truth, but she was also a member of the female species. She could easily hide her anger under that innocent tone of her. Another peaceful silence descended in the room, which was also broken by the cat. Now that I think about it, Kuroka grinned with a toothy and mischievous expression. This situation is exactly like a harem tending to its master. A deep blush spread across Asia's face, and she started emitting smoke through her ears again. Gabriel and Yusaka both had light blushes on their faces, while Ophis stared at Kuroka with curiosity. What? Yusaka exclaimed with a twitch in her eyebrow. Kuroka grinned even more as she hopped to her feet. Can't you see it? Come on, let me show you then. She skipped towards Yusaka and appeared behind him, before suddenly groping the woman's bust, fondling it and eliciting a surprised, high-pitched moan from the vixen. The busty blonde naughty MILF, Kuroka announced before moving on to Gabriel. Gabriel, too, was groped in a similar fashion, causing her to yelp in surprise. The innocent busty MILF, Kuroka said, licking Gabriel's earlobe, drawing a shiver from the archangel. Kuroka then skipped towards Ophis and groped her as well. Surprisingly, Ophis did not fling her 7 dimensions away and took the humor with a curious and amused look on her face. The stoic, yet beautiful, pristine and virgin, black-haired older sister-like character, Kuroka declared, glad that Ophis had not reacted negatively. She pointed at herself and smirked saucily. There's me, the naughty little breedable catgirl. Kuroka pounced towards Asia, hugging her from behind and smothering her breasts against the poor girl's back, laying her chin on her head. And of course, can't forget the cute little sister-type girl. All we need is a Tangiaru, and the harem will be complete. Wah! Asia exclaimed in surprise at being included in the harem. What are you saying? She expressed her disgust. He is my brother, She immediately joined her hands, starting to pray at the folly of the cat. Kuroka gave an amused look at the proclaimed sister. "Oh, you don't want to be in the harem," she shrugged. "You're lost then," she hummed thoughtfully. "Maybe once I manage to mend my relationship with Sharon, she can join the harem and take the little sister role. She would fit well, and I can't wait for the two of us to have absolutely beautiful little kittens together." She let out a shrill cry of excitement and then offered a seductive smirk, making a gesture with her hand as if blowing an invisible phallus. "After what I have witnessed, I must say, he has an absolute bitch breaker." By this point, Asia had lost consciousness due to the stimulating images that Kuroka's proclamation created in her brain. Both Yusaka and Gabriel blushed intensely. "All right, enough, you horny cat," Yusaka roared. "If you don't stop, I will banish you from here." Kuroka pouted, huffed, and dropped to her butt, sitting cross-legged. "Pooh, party pooper, NYA." Yusaka pinched the bridge of her nose in annoyance. "Say," Gabriel frowned with a mixture of worry and confusion. "I should have asked you this much earlier, but what were you doing in Naruto's mansion?" Kuroka smiled shamelessly. "Oh, that's simple." She stood up, twirled around, and transformed into a two-tailed black cat that Gabriel had seen before. "You." The Archangel's eyes widened in surprise. The black cat sat on its hind legs and said, "You got it? My name is Kuro, as Naruto named me." "But," Gabriel paused and blinked. "I don't understand. How did Naruto not already know about you? No, better yet, how did you get past me? I should have remembered you. Why don't I remember you? All my memories are fuzzy." "That would be because of me," Ophis interrupted the Archangel. Yusaka and Gabriel both turned to look at Ophis, but instead of the dragon god, it was Kuroka in her cat form who spoke. "Lady Ophis gave me this," Kuroka said as a dark snake popped out of her fur. "This snake is Lady Ophis' magic given form. It suppresses my presence to the extent that I begin to resemble a normal cat. Also, it causes anyone who looks at me to not recognize me. In other words, it both masks my presence and my identity. Also, it helped me track Naruto. As much as I hate to admit it, if it wasn't for this little snake, I would have never located him." Yusaka and Gabriel stared dumbfoundedly at the snake dancing on Kuroka's fur. "How on earth is something like that possible?" Yusaka asked in shock. "Guess she isn't the dragon god for no reason," Gabriel replied in a defeated tone. When dealing with incredibly powerful beings, she had long ago thrown logic out of the window. Another silence enveloped the room until Ophis broke it with a very uncomfortable question. "What is a harem?" The question managed to draw out an annoyed groan from both Yusaka and Gabriel. Omnipotence City. A city that existed in a completely different dimension. A city that predated even the formation of the universe itself. A city where the gods of every pantheon gathered to discuss matters of great importance. Michael had visited this city a few times before, but he never got used to its splendor. Every time he came here, he felt awed by its majesty. Omnipotence City was a sight to behold. It floated in the vastness of space, shining like a jewel among the stars. The city was built with trimmings from the clay of creation and fired with embers that lit the first sun. At its center was a golden dome, where the Parliament of Pantheons convened to discuss matters of cosmic importance. Surrounding the dome were various structures and landmarks, each reflecting the culture and history of the gods who inhabited them. There was the Genesis Bazaar, where one could find anything from divine artifacts to exotic creatures. There was the Halls of All-Knowing, where the secrets of the universe were stored and guarded by the Lord Librarian. There was the Entropy Dungeons, where the most dangerous and evil beings were imprisoned and tortured. And there were many more wonders and horrors to explore in Omnipotence City, the nexus of all gods. "This place really exudes grandeur, doesn't it?" Raphael said in an odd tone beside Michael. Michael, who was standing next to Raphael and staring at the city with his hands behind his back, nodded. "Well, considering that this is the city where the gods meet once every 1,000 years, you can't expect otherwise. This city never ceases to amaze me." "Let's go, brother. We don't want to make Zeus angry," Uriel said in a mocking manner, making Michael chuckle. Most gods would rather sit with a donkey and teach it to speak than listen to an irritated Zeus ranting. Zeus, the king of gods in the Greek pantheon, was respected for his power. Most gods showed him respect only for the sake of it. Behind his back, they would insult him and call him names. It was not a proud moment for the gods, but they often made an exception for Zeus. Michael, Raphael, and Uriel walked together towards the parliament at a leisurely pace. They admired the beauty of the city. What was interesting was that the inhabitants of this city were primordial. They had been here even before the gods existed. This was the only place where such a large population of primordials lived. Most primordials had been killed by the new gods. Currently, there were only 3 gods who were primordial and they formed the Trimurti. "It still amazes me that Zeus hasn't killed the primordials of this city," Raphael said. "Especially considering his hatred for anything related to primordials." Michael shrugged his shoulders. He would have, if not for Father and Lord Shiva's intervention. Don't forget, they also persuaded the primordials of this city to host the gods for an annual meeting every 1,000 years. Uriel did not join the conversation, but he grunted his agreement. It's a shame that Gabriel couldn't be here with us, Raphael said sadly. What did she tell you when she contacted you? Gabriel called you? Uriel asked curiously. Michael nodded. She did. And is Naruto somehow related to what happened in the Buddhist heaven? Uriel asked, almost too eagerly. That. Michael frowned. How did you know she called me to talk about Naruto? Uriel smiled charmingly. Nothing. Just a lucky guess. Our little sister can hardly talk about anything else besides Naruto these days. Raphael laughed at Uriel's words. Michael felt a smile on his face. Both brothers were happy to see their sister move on with her life. Anyway, Michael continued, apparently, Naruto has returned, but he is in a coma. Gabriel didn't say much more, but she sounded both relieved and worried. Interesting, Uriel murmured, before speaking louder. I bet my fortune that Zeus summoned the gods because he considers Naruto a threat to the current order and wants to eliminate him as soon as possible. Raphael raised an eyebrow at Uriel. And weren't you in the same boat? I hope you're not going to betray us and help Zeus hunt down Naruto. Uriel laughed at his brother's accusation. I'm hurt that you think so poorly of me, Raphael. But yes, I was once suspicious of Naruto, but now, I think he will be a great asset for our pantheon. Raphael frowned at that, but chose not to voice his doubts. Uriel had always been strange like that, and sometimes, he just didn't make sense. Just so you remember, Michael said, Naruto is not a member of the church. He is a simple mercenary who we give contracts to eliminate demons and devils. Uriel stopped in his tracks and stared at Michael with a raised eyebrow. Then, why are we helping him, brother? Michael stopped and turned himself a little before glancing sideways at Uriel. To repay him for all the help he has provided not just us but all the souls who were once misguided. Do not forget what Naruto does is not exorcise the devils but release their souls so that they can experience afterlife. That fact alone is enough for me and anyone in heaven to rally our full support for him. Ah. If it isn't the young Christian trio. Someone behind them had spoken those words, and so, the trio turned around to see who it was. They found a woman standing a few meters away from them. The woman possessed a face of otherworldly beauty, with shoulder-length blonde hair adorned with flowers and large blue eyes. Her figure was extremely voluptuous, boasting breasts larger than a man's head and wide hips. She was clad in traditional Greek clothes that consisted of a simple white cloth that barely covered any of her privates. A generous amount of her cleavage, underboob and sideboob, was exposed as the cloth only hid her nipples. Anything below and above her pelvis region was exposed without shame. The cloth fell down forming a tiny curtain, hiding her nether regions. The cloth only hid her upper butt, causing some of her lower butt to remain exposed. She adorned multiple pieces of gold jewelry such as arm bangles and beads. She also went barefoot. Oh my, the woman said in a sensual tone as she approached the trio. Her breasts jiggled captivatingly with each step. You three have grown into quite fine men. Raphael coughed into his fist, clearly discomforted by the woman's presence, while Uriel looked the other way, disinterested. We will be on our way, brother, Raphael said, walking away towards the parliament. I will meet you at the entrance of the parliament, Uriel stated, heading in a different direction. Ah, the woman pouted, puffing her cheeks in mock anger. Those two haven't warmed up to their loving sister yet. You are not our sister, Uriel's voice bellowed in the courtyard, causing the woman to burst into a fit of giggles. Considering that you are the personification of the very thing that we are supposed to resist, you will have to forgive my brothers if they come off as unpleasant, said Michael before he bowed respectfully. Lady Aphrodite. And you are still as uptight as ever. You need to relax, Michael, Aphrodite said with a smile that had seduced countless men before. However, Michael was not someone to melt easily. He kept his face neutral, his eyes straight, looking only at Aphrodite's eyes. Aphrodite pouted at garnering no reaction from Michael, just as she had before. She poked the archangel in the chest and said sensually, you know, Michael, you need to relax and enjoy life, you know, experience the pleasure of flesh. If you want, I can always. Aphrodite smirked seductively and bit the corner of her lips. Much to her dismay, Michael remained unfazed by the suggestive tone in her voice. He smiled and wisely said, the pleasure of the flesh isn't the only way to enjoy life, Lady Aphrodite. There are many other ways too. And not to mention, I do not want to incur your husband's wrath. Aphrodite smiled, this time in a normal way, before bursting into melodic laughter. You truly are something else. Never change, Michael. She chuckled. Is it possible that you are saving yourself for someone special? She smiled teasingly. Maybe someone who has captured your heart. Michael looked up towards the sky as he melancholically said, I am an archangel. Even if I did find someone special, I would never be able to live the life I dream about. After all, we archangels are cursed with living forever and ever. You might know how it feels. Aphrodite gazed at Michael with sympathy in her eyes. Unrequited love. The goddess sighed sadly. The worst kind of love there is. Unfortunately, I can't relate to you, little Michael. I, after all, have no care for love as long as I find a good phallus to house inside myself, if you know what I mean. Michael gave the Greek goddess a faint smile, ignoring her lewd comment at the end. Would you mind joining me while we head towards the parliament? Aphrodite asked with a friendly smile. Michael offered his left arm and said, Of course, if you will allow me, my lady. Aphrodite wrapped her right arm around Michael's left and the two of them walked towards the House of Gods at a leisurely pace. Has Lord Zeus arrived yet? Michael asked. Aphrodite huffed like a royalty. If he had, we would all be running, not walking. Michael chuckled at her humor. True, but wasn't he the one who called the meeting in the first place? Aphrodite let out a weary sigh. I don't know what's wrong with father lately, he seems angry. Isn't he always angry? Angrier, okay? Michael shrugged. Anyway, as I was saying, Aphrodite continued, something is bothering him. He keeps himself locked in his room and hasn't touched a woman lately. Even Hera is getting worried. Michael did not show it on his face, but he was amazed that a man not touching a woman other than his wife could ever be a cause for worry. This meeting. Do you know why he called it? Aphrodite looked at Michael and raised an eyebrow. Are you telling me that you have no idea why father called this meeting? Michael shook his head. I have some guesses, but I wanted to confirm. Well, if you want to know, this meeting has been called to discuss Gabriel's little boy toy. As I had guessed. Michael thought before he realized something. Gabriel's boy toy? Yes, Aphrodite replied as if she had not said anything wrong. That's what he is, right? From what I have heard, anyway. I think boy toy is a rather strong term to describe Naruto. Naruto? Is that his name? Naruto Uzumaki, to be more precise. Fishcake Whirlpool. Either his parents had the worst sense of naming or they were the greatest pranksters alive. It amazes me that you found out about Naruto without even knowing his name. Well, father and Ares like calling him a bastard, and most of the other Greek gods are just uninterested in him. And about Gabriel finding herself a boy toy, I found that through some of my little birds, IYKYK. Ikik, if you know, you know. Come on, Michael, the times are changing. Try to keep up. Michael's sweat dropped. Are Lord Poseidon and Lord Hades not interested in Naruto at all? Poseidon has been chilling in Atlantis since he tried to rebel against father and Hades just wants peace that father does not want to grant him, Aphrodite answered. The only gods who I know are interested are Ares and Apollo. Apollo, because he is just curious like that. And Ares, because of his bloodthirst and love for anything that can fight. I see. Anyway, how is little Gabriel doing? Michael smiled joyously. She is doing fine. No, she is doing great. But after remembering the distraught voice from earlier that day, he added, hopefully. Of course, she is doing great. I would have never guessed that Gabriel had it in her. She must have hidden her cougar self under that innocent face of hers. After all, the quietest ones are the wildest ones. Oofufufu, she giggled. Mama likes it a lot. I will appreciate it if you did not talk about my sister like that. Fufufu. Michael, learn to take a joke. Oh my look, we have already arrived. They had been so engrossed in their conversation that neither had realized they had arrived at the entrance of the parliament. Michael noticed Uriel and Raphael standing by the gate. Aphrodite. Michael looked to his right to see another equally beautiful woman stomp her way towards them. Athena, Aphrodite said with a slightly irritated tone. You were waiting for me? Of course we were. Athena growled, followed by Artemis. We were almost going to go and find you. Athena. I am not a child anymore, Aphrodite said with a frown. Yeah, but your legs are too loose. So, who knows what you would be up to? Girls, please let's not fight here. Artemis tried to stop the two from escalating the situation. Athena sighed. You are right. Come on, let's go inside. Athena began to walk into the parliament, followed by Artemis. Artemis looked at Michael and smiled at him. It is nice meeting you, Michael. You have grown into a fine young man. Michael bowed respectfully. It is a pleasure to meet you too, Lady Artemis. Anyways, I should be going too, Aphrodite said, turning to Michael. And do tell Gabriel that if she ever wants to experience a threesome, to give me a call. She sent a flying kiss in Uriel and Raphael's direction, causing the two to shiver in fright before leaving. As Aphrodite disappeared into the parliament, Uriel and Raphael joined Michael. Thank you for leaving me behind with her, Michael said with a groan. Yeah, out of the three of us, only you can stay near her without getting traumatized, Raphael said dryly. It was a necessary sacrifice, Uriel said while nodding wisely. Shut up. Let's go already. Michael turned around and hastily made his way inside the parliament. The interior of the parliament was vast, a giant circular room with seats arranged in tiers like a football stadium. The seats were divided according to the various pantheons and were painted with the color of the respective pantheon for identification. These seats were where gods and demigods from pantheons like Norse, Greek, Hindu, Egyptian, Shinto, Buddhist, etc., and angels from the Abrahamic factions sat. At the center, probably hundreds of meters down, was the place where the principal gods of the strongest pantheons sat, gods who had conquered worlds and garnered respect from every other god. In this circle, there were 6 golden thrones for the king of gods of Norse, Greek, Hindu, Egyptian, Buddhism, and Abrahamic. Michael walked down the stairs with elegant grace. Raphael patted him on his shoulder, while Uriel nodded before both of them parted ways and went towards the designated area for Abrahamic angels in the stadium-like seats. Michael took a deep breath and continued walking down. Once there, he walked towards the throne where his father once sat. He did not let it show, but seeing the throne made him remember his father's commanding voice. He stood beside the throne as the representative of the Abrahamic pantheon. Little by little, the seats of the parliament started to fill with gods from pantheons like Greek, Egyptian, Mayan, Norse, Hindu, and Buddhism. The commotion increased in the parliament. But it all stopped when a powerful aura descended upon the entire parliament. Michael looked at the entrance and saw the Norse party, consisting of Odin, Rosweiss, and Thor, enter. Odin, an elderly man with long gray hair and matching beard, wore a short blue robe with gold lining on the collar, sleeves, and the front, while the rest of the robe was white. Beside Odin was Thor, the strongest god of the Norse pantheon, standing at an intimidating height of 7 feet 8 inches. Thor had long red hair held by an elastic at the back, a beard of the same color with 2 braids, and a scar running down the right side of his face. He wore a simple leather tunic that barely covered his bulging muscles, with armor on his arms and shoulders, and a metallic belt around his waist. Behind them was Rosweiss, a beautiful woman with long silver hair, wearing Valkyrie armor, and serving as Odin's secretary and bodyguard. The trio walked down the stairs with grace, and once in the circle, Odin and Rosweiss moved towards the throne dedicated to the Norse pantheon. Thor, however, walked straight towards Michael and stood before him, looking down on him with a stoic and judging face. Michael felt a drop of sweat flow down his forehead as he looked up at the strongest Norse god while trying to keep himself straight. However, Thor's lips turned upwards in a happy and proud smile. "You have grown up, Michael. Last time, you fell down on your knees. This time you managed to keep yourself straight. Good for you." Thor finished with a nod of acknowledgement. Hearing Thor speak like a happy child with that booming voice of his still managed to shock Michael. Thor gave Michael a curious look and said, "Say, I heard this Naruto Uzumaki is affiliated with the Abrahamic pantheon somehow. Mind making some arrangements for me?" Michael began. "I am sorry, Lord Thor. Unfortunately, he isn't affiliated with us. He is just a mercenary, and my sister is quite taken with him." "Oh," Thor muttered in disappointment. "That's disappointing." Michael almost felt like he had kicked a puppy as he looked at the depressed face of Thor. I would be glad to send him any message through my sister if you want." Thor let out a booming laughter. "Oh ho ho ho. So, you can contact him. Anyway, it isn't really that important. I just wanted to see if this Naruto Uzumaki is indeed as powerful as I hear him to be. If I am right and Naruto fought someone from the Buddhist pantheon and was able to shake all of heaven, then I am not keen on finding what will happen if these two fight," Michael thought to himself. I can't speak for Naruto, but I think he isn't someone who looks forward to fighting people unnecessarily." "Unnecessarily, URK. Michael cursed in his mind at the slip of his tongue. Thor made a thoughtful noise and said, "Maybe if I were to kidnap your sister, then he will be forced to fight me." Why is everyone out for my sister, today?" Michael wondered. "Ha ha ha." Thor laughed and patted Michael on the back with enough force to cause the Archangel to stumble forward. "Don't worry. I won't do anything like that." And with that, Thor turned around and walked away towards the Norse section reserved on the stadium. Michael let out a relieved sigh as Thor walked away. However, he wasn't allowed a second to relax as someone said from beside him. "The curse of being associated with the strongest." Michael almost jumped out of his skin, and his head snapped towards his right. His eyes widened when he saw Buddha standing beside him and eyeing Thor with an indifferent look. "The easiest way to bring down the strongest is to go for the people they care about," Buddha said in an irritated tone. Underhanded tactic, but many times a really successful tactic too. And considering his rather disturbing love to fight, Buddha looked at Michael and continued, "If I were you, I would tell your sister to keep 2 eyes on the back of her head." "Lord Buddha," Michael greeted respectfully. "Thank you for your advice. I would be glad to pass it on to my sister." Buddha gave a nod and left without another word. Michael watched Buddha heading towards the throne reserved for Buddhism. There were gods who exuded a peaceful aura like Father, Vishnu, and Hestia. There were gods whose presence alone was enough to suffocate a lower being like Odin, Thor, and Zeus. And then there was Buddha, who exuded no presence. If one were to not be aware of his status as a god, they would think he was a normal human. He wondered where Jade Emperor was, considering that Jade Emperor was one who attended this kind of meetings on behalf of the Buddhist pantheon. Another powerful aura appeared in the room. Looking towards the entrance, he saw the Egyptian chief god enter. The Egyptian chief god was none other than Amun-Ra, the sun god. Unlike the other almost humanoid gods, Amun-Ra and most of the Egyptian pantheon were a weird mixture of an animal and human. Amun-Ra, for one, had the body of a human and the head of a hawk. Amun-Ra descended down the stairs and went straight for his throne. Next to appear through the entrance was Indra. Like Buddha, he did not exude any presence either. But what made him the most noticeable was the fact that in a room filled with gods in their battle armors, he appeared wearing a simple Hawaiian shirt and denim shorts. He had a bead necklace wrapped around his neck and sunglasses on his eyes. The king of gods of the Hindu pantheon walked down the stairs and headed towards Buddha, where the two began talking in hushed voices. Michael stood there, glancing over the room, and it was at this point he came to a harsh realization. It was only the Treaty of Heavens that really protected the Abrahamic heaven after Father's death. The humans following the Abrahamic religion had managed to anger a lot of gods in this room by decreasing their influence on Earth. It would be very easy for someone like Zeus to bend them together and declare war on their heaven. Suddenly, the whole room was engulfed with a suffocating presence. Michael felt himself break down in nervous sweat as he looked up at the entrance. There, standing at the entrance, was the imposing figure of Zeus. He stood almost as tall as Thor in his unadulterated form. He was an old, extremely muscular white-haired man. He was wearing the traditional Greek clothing for men, which consisted of a simple white toga combined with golden armbands. On his shoulder was his familiar, the golden eagle. The eagle let out a shrill cry and flew out of the room before Zeus started to move. He took one step, and the whole room shook like an earthquake. Each consecutive step he took managed to send vibrations throughout the entire room. They say, each of the stones used to construct this building was as heavy as a black hole. To be able to shake the whole building with one step was not just impressive but terrifying too. Amongst the gods in the stadium, some looked at the Greek god with reverence, some glared at the god while some were neutral, but one thing was common in everyone's eyes. Respect. Amongst the principal gods inside the circle below, Amun-Ra stared at the descending figure of Zeus with irritation in his eyes. Buddha just stared indifferently. Indra was for some reason dozing off in his throne unbothered by the entrance of the god. Odin scoffed before smirking and saying, "Show off. If I knew we were making grand entrances, then I could have made some good theatrics." Michael felt really insufficient as he stood beside his father's throne. Gods from every pantheon were here, and it made Michael feel naked as he stood there without his father's guidance. Once descended from the stairs, Zeus walked and stopped at the center of the circle. He slowly turned his head and stared neutrally at Buddha. "So, it is true." His rough and stern voice echoed through the whole room. Buddha folded his head behind his head and leaned back against his throne, not caring to answer the Greek god. Zeus scoffed. "Disrespectful brat," he said and walked towards his throne. Up in the stands, Aphrodite put her right elbow on the armrest of her chair and leaned her face against her right fist as she watched her father make some form of entrance. "Stupid old man," she muttered in disgust. "You should not be so rough on our father, sister." Aphrodite glanced to her left from the corner of her eyes and saw her half-brother Hermes sitting on the seat beside her. He was a handsome, lean-figured man but for some reason liked wearing a butler uniform. "Hermes," Aphrodite's voice was as dry as a desert, "still faithful to our father." "He is our father, is he not?" Hermes snarked with a charming smile. "If we aren't faithful to him, then whom would we be faithful to?" Aphrodite huffed and folded her hands under her generous globs of flesh. Did he really call the gods council because he is too insecure about a brat? "I won't call someone a brat if they were able to fight a god on equal grounds and shake the entire heaven and earth," Hermes said while looking down at the circle. "An impressive feat, I must say. Considering heaven itself is divided into numerous sections to accommodate the pantheons." Aphrodite did not say anything in return. Her mind was preoccupied with the thoughts of the young man who had managed to rattle her rather indomitable father. During the younger years of the Abrahamic pantheon, one of her many conquests was to seduce angels and make them fall. It was a sport for her and some of her companions. She would often conceal herself in her human form and hunt for angels. Many had fallen to her charm and had fallen from heaven. One of the many targets of the god of lust was Gabriel herself. But the woman had always managed to elude her and decline her companion's proposals. She had sent men and women after the archangel, but not once had Gabriel faltered. She had approached the archangel herself, and yet Gabriel had managed to remain innocent and unaware of the advances. To hear that someone like Gabriel had been charmed by a young man made her curious, and a curious Aphrodite was worse than an angered Ares. Naruto Uzumaki, she thought to herself, I wonder just how long will you be able to resist my charms. Down in the circle, Zeus had finally sat down on his throne and leaned back on it. The gods sat there in silence for a few minutes before the Egyptian god burst out impatiently. What, are we here to stare at each other all day? Amun-Ra exclaimed in an exasperated tone. Indeed, Odin began as he looked at Zeus. Are you going to tell us why you summoned us here? If I remember correctly, the annual meeting was still 1 or 2 centuries away. Zeus narrowed his glowing eyes as he stared at Buddha. I was waiting for you to speak first, Siddhartha, he said in his commanding tone. Buddha squinted his eyebrows in confusion. What, are you kidding me? You summon us and you want me to speak. Have you gone senile, old man? Why are you here, Siddhartha? Zeus questioned, unbothered with the accusations laid on him by the Buddhist god. You don't attend these meetings. Jade Emperor does. Where is he? Buddha felt the muscles on the right side of his lips twitch in annoyance. Are you going to tell us? Zeus asked. He is dead, Buddha let it out without hesitation. The whole room was engulfed in murmurs as the gods of almost every pantheon were shocked by the news. Dead? Odin asked, looking at Buddha questioningly. How? Buddha shrugged his shoulders. We don't have any ideas. Oh, but you do, Zeus interjected with a triumphant tone in his voice. Buddha raised an amused eyebrow at Zeus. Oh, do I now? It seems you know me better than I do myself. His voice dripped with sarcasm. Zeus leaned forward in anticipation. Tell me, who was the one who was in your heaven when both heaven and earth were struck by those tremors? I don't see how my guest's presence in my heaven is any of your concern, Zeus. Buddha said, narrowing his eyes dangerously. Zeus closed his eyes and continued ignoring Buddha. Naruto Uzumaki. He is the one responsible in shaking heaven and earth. He fought Sun Wukong and fatally injured the monkey, did he not? Fatally, I won't say. Buddha tried to deflect, but Zeus provided him no reprieve. And yet, he is the one in coma and you are here defending the one who sent him in one. Siddhartha. Or you, perhaps, betraying us gods and turning a traitor even though we welcomed you with open arms. Buddha kept a straight face, but Zeus was starting to get to his nerves. He had never liked Zeus and would never like him. I am not defending anyone, here. Just stating the facts that I know. Then what is stopping you from telling the truth? Zeus insisted. Why don't you tell us how your pantheon lost track of your guest? How he invaded your pantheon, killed one of the lower gods and escaped? A frown of confusion appeared on Buddha's face. How does he know so much about the incident? Don't tell me there is a traitor in our heaven? Well, since you are so reluctant in saying the boy's name, then let me educate this room of gods about the threat that would engulf our world in the coming days. Zeus said, authoritatively. Suddenly, a large hologram of Naruto appeared over the circle for all the gods to see. Michael's breath hitched as the image showed Naruto with a horn growing out of his left forehead. He had no idea what that horn was. Did Gabriel know about this? If so, then why had she not told him? I will tell you the reason why Jade Emperor isn't here, Zeus said as he pointed a finger at the hologram. Because he was killed by this brat. What? Buddha muttered in confusion. Dude has gone senile for real. And what do you expect us to do, Zeus? Amun-Ra asked, crossing his hands over his chest. I propose that this brat is dealt with properly, Zeus said seriously. By properly, you don't mean kill him? Odin asked, raising a curious eyebrow. Zeus nodded gravely and answered, yes, that is exactly how you deal with the likes of him. Amun-Ra pushed himself off the throne and started walking towards the gate from which everyone had entered. Where are you going, Ra? Zeus asked, his voice booming through the room. Amun-Ra kept ascending the stairs and without looking back he answered, not interested. And like that the Egyptian chief god left the parliament without another word and leaving Zeus behind to tremble in anger. Michael sighed both in relief and in annoyance. An irritated Zeus was worse than a banshee screaming. A day had elapsed since Ophis and Kuroka made their presence known in Kyoto, bearing the unconscious body of Naruto. In the aftermath, Yasaka's shrine plunged into chaos. The revelation that not only a fugitive devil but also the infinite dragon graced Kyoto stirred panic among the elders and influential figures. Yasaka, grappling with the escalating situation, spent an entire day restoring order and assuring concerned authorities of their goodwill. Despite her assertions, the reality loomed. Yasaka remained oblivious to the potential challenges that sheltering Naruto Uzumaki might entail. Lady Amaterasu had forewarned Yasaka of an impending guest who would join discussions about the blonde. Unaware of the guest's identity, Yasaka braced herself for potential adversity. Beside Naruto's bed, Gabriel and Asia dedicated themselves to his care, meticulously tending to his needs, changing bandages, dressing wounds, and ensuring a consistent supply of nutrients. His injuries had already vanished long ago, only his awakening remained. Ophis found solace in Kyoto's natural beauty, often lost in contemplation amid the trees of Yusaka's shrine garden. Her enchanting presence attracted a few yukais, but alas, none dared to engage with her. Right now, it was midnight. The whole shrine was asleep, except for one. Kuroka. The exuberant feline moved with measured steps through the corridors of Yusaka's room, approaching Naruto's chamber. She slowly slid the door open, peering inside to find Gabriel peacefully slumbering beside Naruto on her own futon. Opening the door further, Kuroka stealthily entered, tiptoeing towards Gabriel's sleeping figure. Bending down, she brought her lips close to Gabriel's ear and whispered, "Gabriel." No response followed. "Gabriel," Kuroka repeated, still met with silence. Poking the archangel's cheek without eliciting any reaction, she hummed in thought. "She seems deeply asleep," she acknowledged with a nod. "Good." Standing upright, Kuroka cast an anticipatory smirk at Naruto's unconscious form. Sauntering around Gabriel, she began to undo the buttons of her robe. By Naruto's legs, she discarded her kimono without hesitation, revealing her alluring form. Dropping to her knees, Kuroka advanced towards Naruto on all fours, a picture of desire. She seized the cover over Naruto's form, pulling it down and discarding it. Crawling on all fours until she hovered over him, their faces inches apart, she touched Naruto's left whiskers with her right hand, gazing at the unconscious blonde with lust-filled eyes. "I don't know what kind of enchantment you've woven, Blondie," Kuroka breathily confessed, "but since spending those 2 months with you, I've been entranced, experiencing an incessant surge of desire. I can't escape thoughts of you, Naruto Uzumaki." She extended her tongue, licking Naruto's nose from tip to forehead. "And now, you must take responsibility." Reverse crawling to align her face with Naruto's waist, Kuroka gripped the hems of his pants, freeing his phallus. Grinning at the sight, she handled the intimate instrument with care, admiring and worshipping its form. Bringing her nose close to the tip, she took a long sniff, inhaling Naruto's scent, triggering an intense surge of desire. "Such a manly scent," Kuroka sang, "Mama likes." Extending her tongue to lick Naruto's mushroom head, she shivered as an unknown liquid invaded her senses. She moaned in delight, drawing her face closer to the manhood. Cradling it like a precious possession, she yearned to mark every part of Naruto's crotch, proclaiming her devotion to this absolute force. "Maybe if I suck you fervently enough, you'll awaken, Kuroka suggested with a moan. "It's the only treatment we haven't explored." Placing Naruto's manhood against his stomach, she extended her tongue and licked the object of her desire from the base to the tip, relishing the distinctive taste of the blonde, ensuring it left an indelible mark in her memory. "Let's delve into the enticing part," she proclaimed with enthusiasm, poised to engulf the flaccid member with her mouth, only to be abruptly seized by the back of her neck. Startled by the sudden touch, Kuroka raised her head to meet Naruto's piercing blue eyes. She acknowledged that it was Naruto who had taken hold of her. "You enjoy it rough, I'm all in, go as rough as you desire," she encouraged with an excited grin. Anticipating a forceful act, Kuroka expected Naruto to grab the back of her head and thrust his manhood down her throat. She braced for a relentless experience, envisioning coughing, choking, and unconsciousness while the innocent archangel slept soundly. She anticipated degradation, feeling like a worthless slut whose mouth would accept any sizable appendage. Contrary to her expectations, an event unfolded that would forever be etched in her memory. In the next moment, Naruto flung her over his head and across the room, propelling her through the walls and into Yusaka's garden. A lesson was learned: never attempt intimacy with Naruto Uzumaki while he sleeps, especially without prior introduction. Chapter End. Chapter 14. Friendship in the chamber recently vacated by Naruto. Yusaka attended to the bedridden Kuroka. The vixen sighed, torn between amusement and sympathy for the Nekomata. While Kuroka's predicament amused her, it was undoubtedly embarrassing from the Nekomata's perspective. Yusaka struggled to comprehend Kuroka's actions. Though not intimately acquainted with the Nekomata, she was certain Kuroka wasn't inclined to sexually assault someone in their slumber. Yet, the mystery persisted, albeit partially unraveled in her mind. Fortunately, Naruto's actions had spared Kuroka further embarrassment. His intervention, striking a pressure point on the cat's neck before flinging her away, rendered her unconscious. This led to the exposure of her fully naked form to onlookers, though Yusaka pondered if Kuroka would have been fazed given her usual audacity. Yusaka appreciated Naruto's chivalry. Exiting his room through the broken wall, he draped his blanket over Kuroka before carrying her inside to rest on his futon. His subsequent disappearance left both Yusaka and Gabriel perplexed. Attempts to locate him proved futile, his whereabouts a mystery. With Asia's assurance of his return by nightfall, Yusaka refrained from further inquiry, sensing the nun's reluctance to divulge more. Trusting in fate, she awaited their reappearance, mindful of the complexities that awaited their return. Knowing that Kuroka did not need any more tending to for now, Yasaka was about to get up and visit her council members when suddenly the door to the room was flung open and none other than the infinite dragon god, Ophis, sashayed in like a succubus. Ophis stopped beside Kuroka's futon, directly opposite Yasaka, and sat down with her legs spread to her right. She looked downright majestic in Yasaka's eyes. She then placed a gentle hand on Kuroka's head, which was engulfed by a blackish energy. A few seconds later, Ophis removed her hand from Kuroka's head and said in a hollow tone, she should wake up anytime soon. Probably by tonight. I see. That is nice, Yasaka answered with a relieved tone. She then focused on Kuroka, who was breathing peacefully. She does not act like that, does she? Ophis frowned at the question. You will have to be a little more clear here, Vixen. Yasaka was a little surprised that Ophis' voice wasn't as emotionless as before. There was some emotion in her voice. Why did she sexually assault Mr. Uzumaki? She isn't someone like that, right? Yasaka explained her question.
I would not know for sure, unfortunately, Ophis answered, pondering deeply. Her actions have confused me too. I have never seen her act like this, but I guess I have an idea why she acted the way she did.
Does it have something to do with Mr. Uzumaki's aura? Yasaka questioned. So, you have noticed it too? Ophis questioned back before nodding sagely. But of course, you are probably even more connected to Mother Earth than Kuroka is. So, you are bound to notice it. So, I was right? Yasaka said sorrowfully. That young man has been trying to purify Mother Earth's hatred all by himself all this time. Ophis nodded in agreement. I noticed it when I had met him first. He was circulating natural energy throughout his body. At first, I had thought that it was because he was trying to weaponize the energy, but it was only after observing him for some time that I realized that it wasn't the case. If I have to guess, then, since then, Uzumaki has been constantly filtering Earth's hatred inside his body. Such a noble man, Yasaka muttered with a sigh. And of course, Kuroka, who has been exposed to the corrupt natural energy, was instantly affected by the pure natural energy pouring out of Naruto. Not only that, Ophis continued, but Kuroka spent 2 months with Uzumaki under my orders. Spending so much time around him must have exposed her to a copious amount of pure natural energy, Yasaka said thoughtfully. And all that combined with her devil nature and the sins that come with it caused her to act like a horny slut ready to sexually assault Mr. Uzumaki.
Yes, Ophis said with a nod. That is what I concluded too.
Yasaka sighed and said, I just hope we can explain this to Mr. Uzumaki, and he is humble enough to accept Kuroka's apology when she wakes up. She then got up from her position. If you will excuse me, Lady Ophis, I have a few important matters to handle. Of course, Vixen, Ophis said with a little warmth in her voice. Don't let me hold you here. Will you be staying here? Yasaka asked in a timid voice.
Ophis' eyes focused on Kuroka's face as a recent memory started playing in her mind. Flashback. Ophis observed the Archangel with keen interest. Her face was devoid of any emotion, but her eyes were slightly narrowed as she watched the Archangel replace the damp cloth on Naruto's forehead with a fresh one. She could not comprehend the reason for this action, and that sparked her curiosity.
Kuroka and Asia had departed a while ago. Asia had been very hesitant to leave Naruto's side, but Gabriel, Yasaka, and Kuroka had persuaded her to go and have some lunch.
The attitude of Gabriel and Asia baffled Ophis immensely, Naruto's even more so. Why did they care for someone they barely knew? Why did they neglect their own hunger to tend to someone else? Naruto was powerful, so why did he allow himself to be surrounded by these two people who were far inferior to him? Why did he attempt to vainly associate himself with people who would never grasp his true nature? These questions pounded Ophis' mind, and they genuinely made her perplexed.
Ophis caught Gabriel looking at her from the corner of her eye, and that was when the infinite dragon god decided to pose her question, why? Her abrupt question startled Gabriel, who flinched slightly. I beg your pardon, but what do you mean, Lady Ophis? Gabriel inquired uncertainly. Why do you look after him? Ophis clarified and pointed at Naruto. Why do I look after Naruto? Gabriel echoed to confirm she understood Ophis correctly. Ophis nodded silently. Well, it is quite simple, Gabriel said with a smile. I look after him because I care for him.
Care for him? Ophis questioned with a puzzled frown on her face. Why would you care for him? She continued, but was more perplexed to see Gabriel's cheeks flush.
Gabriel stammered, unsure how to answer that question. You met him a year ago, right? Ophis asked again. That is not a long time in my perspective. So, how, and why do you care for him if you barely know him? Gabriel's eyes dimmed sadly as she looked away from the infinite dragon. I don't know. It's just, Naruto reminds me of my father so much. He is exactly like him. Kind, caring, and extremely passionate. Both of them loved helping others, and when someone hurt their loved ones, they would go berserk. I suppose, it just originates from that. Or maybe there is something more that I am unable to see. So, you care for him just because he resembles Yahweh? Ophis asked indifferently. Honestly, I do not understand what I feel. Gabriel responded. I have lived for eons now, and yet, this is the first time I feel like this. Whenever I am near Naruto, I feel butterflies in my stomach. I feel happy, and I just want him to be happy. I feel sad when I see him sad. When I see him laughing and having fun with Asia, I feel ecstatic. I don't know why, but I want him near me. Not only that, but I want to spend as much time as possible with him. Ophis gazed at Gabriel with probing eyes, as if evaluating her. Gabriel's head dropped as she stared at her hands that lay on her laps. I wonder if this is what father meant when he talked about love. Love? Ophis repeated with a frown. Gabriel turned her head towards Ophis and smiled knowingly. Maybe. Does Lady Ophis want to know about love? Ophis shrugged her shoulders casually. Love has never crossed my mind before, but I will not lie if I said I have not been curious about it. Gabriel turned her head away from Ophis and stared outside the window. Sadly, even I am as confused and curious about this feeling as you are. Some say, love is a curse. Some say, love is the most beautiful feeling in the world. Aren't you an archangel? Ophis asked with a flat tone. Isn't your whole duty centered around spreading Yahweh's love to humans or something?
Gabriel laughed at Ophis' question. True, we have often been depicted as the beings who spread Father's love to humans. But you also have to understand, that is how we are seen by humans. Most of us are just as puzzled as you are when it comes to love. But Father used to say that love is something that you will only comprehend once you experience it, and it is a marvelous feeling.
So, now I have to go out of my way to look for love? Ophis asked as her frown deepened. That sounds more complex than I would like. Then you can always start from small, Gabriel said with a sagacious tone. Why don't you try to make friends first, and then, try to discover more from there? Friends? Ophis muttered. I don't need them. Everyone needs friends, Gabriel stressed with a strained smile. Good friends can brighten your day, you know. I do not think I am in any need of friends. I have managed alone for so long, I can manage for more. Just because I am curious about love does not mean that I want to go out of my way to make friends. It is just a waste of my time. I pity people like you, Gabriel said courageously after Ophis had finished her monologue. People who would choose to live a lonely life without the contact of friends or family. It must be a sad life that you lead. Ophis narrowed her eyes dangerously. Do not try to act as if you understand me. Ophis said with a grave tone. Why should I go look for friends when I alone am enough to look after myself? Why should I burden myself with beings whom I will have to protect every second of the day? When my enemies come, they will use them against me. Why should I take the responsibility of protecting weak people if they will never be of any use to me? Why should I waste my time trying to befriend someone who is going to betray me someday? Gabriel shook her head sorrowfully. That is exactly why I pity you. Letting your strength, your power interfere in your relationship with others. Letting your power blind you like this. It is true that many times when you make friends, you also harbor the risk of them being used against you. Or them betraying you. But what if your friends want to fight for you? What if your friends want to care for you? You are right, it is hard to understand beings like you because you exist in a world of your own. But you know what makes it easier for us to understand you? Your cooperation. All you have to do is help us understand you, and then you will see just how much help you will receive from those who understood you. Ophis snorted uncharacteristically. You think it is so easy for someone like me to make friends, don't you? Ask anyone with even a fraction of my power, and you will find numerous saying that friends at the end of the day are useless. Ophis stood up abruptly, turned around and started walking towards the door. I am quite sure even Naruto will think like that once he tastes his real power. And that is where you are wrong, Gabriel countered angrily, blocking Ophis at the door. Naruto is the perfect example of someone strong not being blinded by their strength. If he was like you, he would not have approached Asia that day to befriend her. He would not have gone out of his way to protect her or spend time with her each day. He would not have helped the souls of countless stray devils attain the afterlife. He would not be worried about his people. And that alone puts his strength way beyond yours or anyone I know for that matter. He does not let himself be chained down by his power, and that is why he is the strongest, even stronger than you. Ophis let out a chuckle. The first time anyone had heard that from the infinite dragon. You really think Naruto is aware of his power? She questioned in a superior tone. She turned around and faced Gabriel with eyes narrowed in anger. She slowly walked towards Gabriel and bent down at the waist to gaze at Gabriel's ocean blue eyes. Gabriel stared back just as fiercely as the infinite dragon, as Ophis began to speak again. Listen well, little one. Naruto belongs to a species that had once dominated the multiverse. If Yahweh were alive right now, he would have expressly asked you to stay away from the likes of him. Yahweh never liked those parasites.
You think the power Naruto uses right now is his full strength? She let out another chuckle. He hasn't even touched 10% of the power that resides within him. And when he finally realizes his true strength, he will understand that he does not need anyone. That he alone can conquer everything around him. He will not need you or that little nun that he associates with. Friends at the end are of no use to those who are truly strong. Only the weak go look for friends.
Gabriel rose to her feet and glared fiercely at Ophis. You can leave, Lady Ophis, she said coldly. I firmly believe that no matter how powerful Naruto gets, he will never abandon those he cares about. Ophis straightened her posture and looked into Gabriel's eyes, which were looking back at her unwaveringly. This was the first time anyone had not flinched under her stare, apart from Naruto. You will really believe someone you have only known for 1 year? Ophis asked. I will. Gabriel answered, her voice strong and firm, because that is who Naruto is, not some coward. As Gabriel's words entered Ophis' ears, her hand tightened.
She had no idea why, but ever since she had spent that day in the amusement park observing Naruto and his interaction with Gabriel and Asia, she had been interested in him. Not romantically, of course. It was a curiosity. Curiosity as to why Naruto was spending so much time with two beings that were obviously way below him in terms of power. She had even asked him why he wasn't just conquering the biblical heaven, and his answer had of course confused her even further.
She never truly understood the motivation of his actions. She herself had stopped trying to associate with others long ago. She had even forgotten the last time she had genuinely spoken to anyone. To her, associating with others seemed like a waste of time. Yet, watching Naruto laugh and smile when interacting with Gabriel and Asia made her curious. Was there something that she was missing here? I know it sounds hard, Lady Ophis, Gabriel said softly. But making friends is much easier than that. All you have to do is extend a hand to the person and see if they want to take it or not. You will face rejections sometimes, but when you finally make a friend, believe me, that feeling is greater than anything you will ever feel. I don't think, Ophis tried to say, but she was interrupted by Gabriel before she could finish her words. If you give up even before trying, then how will it work? Gabriel asked. Do you think I have not tried? Ophis suddenly exclaimed loudly, much to Gabriel's surprise. I really have, but it never worked. How can someone? Ophis paused for a few seconds before continuing. How can someone like me make friends? Though Ophis could not see it, Gabriel smiled proudly at being able to reach Ophis' heart with her words. I firmly believe that no one in this world is born to be alone. Everyone will find their friends and loved ones in time. And if you want, I can be your first friend, Lady Ophis. Ophis' head snapped back at Gabriel as she stared widely at the Archangel. What? Gabriel smiled angelically at Ophis, a light shining behind her head out of nowhere. It does not matter to me who you are or what you are. If you want to, then I will be your friend, Lady Ophis. And I am quite sure, Naruto would have said the same thing. Ophis spun herself around so that the Archangel would not see the tears that were starting to well up in her eyes. I would like that, little dove, she said while trying to keep her voice as emotionless as possible. Flashback end, Ophis nodded her head and said, yes. I would like to stay by her side for some time, if you do not mind, little vixen. Yasaka bowed respectfully. I am no one to stop you from being by her side. Please stay as long as you want, Lady Ophis, Yasaka said. With that, the vixen walked out of the room, leaving Ophis alone with Kuroka. Ophis stared at Kuroka in deep thought. I wonder if you consider me your friend, kitten, Ophis wondered in her head. Gabriel's voice suddenly returned to her mind as the infinite dragon god heard the Archangel say. All you have to do is extend your hand to the person and see if the person takes it or not. I wonder, Ophis muttered under her breath. She raised her right hand, which was engulfed in her blackish energy. She then cautiously brought it close to Kuroka's chest, right beside her heart. Her hand inched closer to the Nekomata's skin and a second later was inserted into the Nekomata's body without any resistance. Ophis closed her eyes in concentration as suddenly, black tendrils spread throughout Kuroka's body like a black nervous system. It pulsed with energy and glowed brighter with each second. It was like looking at liquid mercury shining under a bright light. Then a minute later, Ophis started to gradually pull her hand out of Kuroka's body. As her hand came out, there were thin threads of a different kind of energy attached to her hand. These threads were much more reddish, which started to snap one by one as Ophis' hand started to make more distance between itself and Kuroka's chest. Once all the threads had snapped and the blackish energy disappeared from around her hand, Ophis opened her fist and on her palm lay the bishop chess piece. She carefully placed the piece beside Kuroka's head and looked out of the window at a clear blue sky. I guess I can do this much for you, my friend, Ophis muttered to herself before she looked out of the window and at a clear, bright sky. Friend. Such a strange word. Naruto gazed at the clear sky with a blank look. A gentle breeze caressed the skin of his face, soothing him and his troubled mind greatly. Right now, he was sitting on a wooden bench he had created on the shore of a beach overlooking the ocean. This beach was in the city of Mawako, in the Iwate prefecture.
Beside him was Gabriel, who was looking at the ocean too with a sad look. This place has truly seen the worst days, Gabriel said with sadness evident in her voice.
Naruto felt himself flinch inside as he was reminded once again that the destruction caused in the city was his fault, though he was sure Gabriel did not mean to hurt him.
Apparently, Miyako had also suffered greatly during the tsunami of 2011 with a lot of people dying. And it was once again hit by another tsunami. Though this time the death toll was less, the death of even a few people would always weigh on Naruto's head and be a burden that he will have to carry for the rest of his life. His clones were currently spread throughout Japan and Indonesia, helping in the rebuilding of the damaged areas. Naruto's mind wandered to the incidents that had happened since his visit to China, and in the span of 2 or 3 months, his hands had been stained with blood. Something that had not even happened in his own world, which was supposed to be even bloodier.
Was this how his strength was going to haunt him for the rest of his life? Was his power always going to have adverse effects like this? These questions had tormented Naruto's mind ever since he had woken up. One thing that was abundantly clear to Naruto was that he needed to use his powers more carefully. If he could cause this much destruction on Earth while fighting in heaven, a completely different dimension, he did not want to even think what kind of adverse effect it would have on the planet if he decided to exert even a small percent of his power here on Earth. No longer could he go around recklessly throwing a Rasengan. He needed to hold back so that he did not end up destroying the planet due to his negligence. "I am sorry," Naruto said, his voice tired and pained. "Why did it happen, Naruto?" Gabriel asked, almost desperately. Naruto narrated everything that had happened in Tien, the realm of the Buddhas. He had been a puppet of his own body then, but he could recall every moment with clarity. That only made him feel more remorseful than ever. "How did you end up losing your will like that?" Gabriel asked softly. She did not sound accusatory, but genuinely curious and eager to comprehend. Naruto let out a sigh. "It seems that it's because of my genes." "Your genes?" Gabriel repeated in a low voice, her face showing bewilderment. "Do you remember when you first met me and asked me what I was?" Naruto asked, staring at his lap.
"Yeah," Gabriel said, nodding her head. "I claimed that I was a human then, right?" Naruto said with a bitter laugh. "Well, I'm not anymore."
"What do you mean?" Gabriel asked, utterly perplexed by what Naruto was implying. Naruto breathed deeply and said, "I mean that my genes have been altered completely. I'm no longer a human by nature." "Then what are you?" "An Otsutsuki," Naruto said, closing his eyes.
"Otsutsuki," Gabriel said slowly. "What is that?" Naruto opened his eyes again and looked up at the sky, as he started to tell her about his encounter in the pure world.
Flashback. Naruto looked at the woman in front of him with a puzzled expression. "So, are you alive? Or am I dead?" he asked. The woman smiled enigmatically and said, "Neither. I am not alive, but you are." Naruto gazed at the woman who he had believed was gone. But here she was, alive and well. She seemed different, though. More serene and calm than before. Her face was gentle and sweet. She had an angelic and maternal aura about her. Her kimono lay on the ground, forming a petal-like shape around her. All of this made Naruto feel very uneasy. "Then what is this place?" Naruto asked, gesturing with his finger at the surroundings. "This is the pure world," the woman answered calmly. "A world that exists between the living and the dead. A world that belongs to the Otsutsukis." "The pure world?" Naruto repeated, baffled. "Like the purple world where I talked to Obito and the old man? I thought that was in my head." "Yes. The chakra path world is a reflection of the Otsutsuki's pure world. A place where the souls that can use chakra can communicate with each other. The Otsutsuki's pure world, like this one," the woman indicated the vast plain with her hand, "is a place where the deceased Otsutsukis can meet and share their wisdom with the younger ones." "So, I can meet other Otsutsukis here?" Naruto asked, folding his arms and narrowing his eyes in confusion. "Not exactly," the woman replied. "This world is only for you and the Otsutsukis whose souls are within you." "I don't understand." "I will help you understand, don't worry," the woman said with a smile. "Why don't you come and sit next to me?" Naruto hesitated, but nodded after a while. He walked over to the woman and sat down on the ground next to her. He peeked at her from the corner of his eye, only to see her looking at him strangely. Her eyes were crinkled and tilted in a smile. Her lips were curved in a playful grin. A faint blush colored her cheeks. Then Naruto noticed her patting her lap. Naruto lifted his eyes and stared at her in bewilderment. "Why don't you rest your head here?" the pale-skinned woman said, teasingly. Naruto felt his cheeks heat up. "And no, I'm fine." The woman tapped her lap again and her smile widened. "Come on, don't be shy. It will feel good. Naruto cleared his throat, and after a few awkward seconds, in which the woman's smile became more playful, Naruto gave in and slowly placed his head on her lap. The woman's smile softened from playful to peaceful as she began to stroke his hair gently, soothing Naruto's mind and body. She hummed quietly with her eyes closed, seemingly lost at the moment. "You look well, Kaguya," Naruto said, relishing the sensation of Kaguya's fingers running through his hair. "All thanks to you, fortunately," Kaguya said. "So, you were going to explain something?" "Yes. Well, to begin with, this place is where the souls of the Otsutsukis that you have consumed will appear." Naruto's body shot up into a sitting position, and he spun around to stare at Kaguya in bewilderment. "What was that?" he asked in an unbelieving tone. "The Otsutsukis that you consume, their soul will manifest in this world," Kaguya answered without hesitation. "The Otsutsukis that I consume, wait, does that mean you guys go around consuming each other?" Naruto asked, feeling like throwing up. "Yes. That is how we dispose off the ones who have lost their purpose," Kaguya replied, nonchalantly. "That's barbaric. You guys bury your dead," Kaguya said. "That is not barbaric, it is to me." "What?" Kaguya looked at Naruto and said in a lecturing tone, "At the end of the day, good and evil depend on perspective. What appears to be good to you may appear bad to me. You should keep that in mind." Naruto sighed and ruffled his hair. "I understand, it's just."
Kaguya shook her head to and fro. "Don't worry, I also understand where you are coming from. But you see, it is our tradition to turn ourselves into chakra fruit when we become useless, so that the younger generation can gain our knowledge and powers."
"Useless? This conversation is getting weird with each second," Naruto said, gloomily. "Well, in human terms, when we become too old to function properly," Kaguya explained. "So, when you guys turn old, you guys turn yourself into fruits so that young ones can eat you? So, you guys just die?" Naruto asked. "Weirdly enough, no we don't," Kaguya said, her face neutral. "Ook, what does that mean now? We have our ways to escape death. And they are, it is better you don't delve into those topics. Oh come on, you can't just leave me hanging like that. Believe me, you are better not knowing about them. I may need them at some point of time, Yano."
"Then, I will pray from here that you never need them." Naruto crossed his hands over his chest and pouted childishly. Now, no need to act like that," Kaguya scolded lightly, like a mother scolding her child. "Come, lay your head here," she patted her lap. "You need all the rest you can get." Naruto sighed and accepted the offer, laying his head on her lap. "Listen, there's something that's been bothering me, lately." Go ahead and ask. The more I learn about my powers, the more I realize that you could have just teleported us out of the dimension gap. You didn't have to turn into a fruit and leave me drifting in nothingness. You didn't have to die, and neither did I have to eat you. We could have. But Kaguya put a finger on his lips, cutting him off. "Shish, you don't understand the damage that the dimension gap did to your human body. No human, no matter how strong they are, can survive in a void of nothingness. Even if I had teleported us out of the dimension gap, you would still die a pointless death. I wanted you to live. I am a relic of the past that has no place in the present. I should have died a long time ago."
"But you matter, though," Naruto argued. "Don't say that. You shouldn't throw away your life so easily." This time, Kaguya squeezed his lips shut. "Don't talk," she said, annoyed, before she smiled gratefully. "But thank you for your kind words. However, what I'm saying is true. I have been running from death for too long. But my time was bound to come. At least, as a low-class Otsutsuki, I could die being useful once." "You said, low-class Otsutsuki? What do you mean by that?" "Well, I am a branch member of the Otsutsuki clan." "Wait, even the Otsutsukis have branches like the Hyuga clan?" Naruto asked, incredulously. "I don't know much about the Hyuga clan, but yes, the Otsutsukis are split into the main and branch families. However, I wasn't always from the branch family. I was once a member of the main family too." "Really? What happened?" Naruto asked. Kaguya's face darkened with anger. "The higher-ups." "The higher-ups? In the Otsutsuki clan, there is a rule that the branch family members must serve the main family members, like slaves. They are expected to give up their lives for the arrogant main family members without hesitation. I opposed this tradition. I used my status and power to gradually, but effectively change this tradition, until some of the higher-ups and main family members discovered my efforts. They, without any regard, banished me from the main family. I still could have been spared." Kaguya clenched her free hand into a fist as she seethed with rage. But my father," Kaguya spat out the word with venom, "chose to betray me in the end." "What? Why would he do that?" Naruto exclaimed. "Because to him, I was a failure. I did not inherit his divine technique and so, in his eyes, I was worthless. But that betrayal opened my eyes. I had tried to deny it for a long time, but his silence made me realize that my dear father had been trying to get rid of me all along. I'm sorry, Naruto said after a few moments of silence. Kagaya shook her head. My life has been riddled with tragedies of my own making.
She looked up at the sky wistfully. I was given another chance to leave everything behind. To run away with someone. Someone I loved with all my heart, but I refused. I broke his heart and in return, I cursed myself to live a life of misery. Maybe that day, if I had taken his hand and run away, everything would have been alright. You would still have parents, all the tragedy in your world would have never happened. My own actions have caused more tragedies than I care to admit.
Hey, don't dwell on the negatives all the time, Naruto said cheerfully. I mean, think about it. If that had happened, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I might not even exist and make all the great friends that I have. Kagaya looked at Naruto sadly. Even after everything that happened to you, how do you stay so positive? Naruto smiled brightly and said, I don't let the bad things get to me. Instead, I try to look at everything positively. It helps a lot, Yano. Kagaya shook her head in wonder. You truly are something else. The two of them sat in silence. Naruto closed his eyes and enjoyed the feeling of Kaguya's hand running through his hair. It calmed his mind and her soft humming eased his heart. The gentle and motherly way Kagaya hummed and patted him made him smile. It was something that he had only felt once before. When he had met his mother, it is quite enjoyable, Kagaya said, breaking the silence with her soft voice. What is? Naruto asked. This moment, Kagaya said. It makes me feel like a loving mother, which I never was. I was never close to my own sons. I have spent an eternity in here reliving my memories, and they make me sick. They were such kind and caring children, concerned about their selfish mother. Yet, all I ever gave them in return was my hatred and curses. They deserved so much better, but I was too blind and drunk on my own power to see them for who they really were. In my quest to prove my father wrong, I became just like him. I guess, it is true when they say that you become what you hate. Naruto did not say anything. He knew he could not. He had no doubt that Kagaya regretted her actions, but that would not undo the harm she had done. At least she was remorseful and not in denial. All he could do was listen to her as she poured out her heart. Naruto. Kaguya's voice was sad and depressed. Never let your power change you. Never let it blind you to the world and the people who care for you. You will no doubt become stronger than now, but please don't follow the dark path that I have taken. Naruto smiled brightly and cheerfully. Come on, there's no way I'm changing. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Believe it. Kagaya smiled sincerely at his cheerful and confident voice. Listen. There's something else that I wanted to ask you, Naruto said, his voice showing his worry. Is it about what made you lose your mind? Kagaya asked. Naruto nodded slowly from his position on Kaguya's lap. Yeah. What was that about? I remember everything that happened but I had no control over my body. That was something that I wanted to ask you too, Kagaya said, her brows furrowing in a frown. What did you do to yourself to lose your mind like that? That shouldn't have happened. I know, Naruto said and sat up. I overcame my hatred at the waterfall of truth. I thought I was done with that. But I felt this hatred. No, it was more like a mix of too many emotions. Hatred, anger, frustration, thrill. I felt them all. But I don't understand why. I mean, I was angry with what happened in China and all the atrocities that I saw. I was angry at the gods for their inaction. But all the other emotions make no sense to me. You need to calm down, Kagaya said firmly, cutting off Naruto's rant. Naruto turned around and faced Kagaya, who was giving him a firm look. Now, tell me what exactly happened, Kagaya said authoritatively. Well, Naruto began, I was in the Buddhist heaven because some of the Buddhist gods thought that I had killed one of them, and... Wait. Kagaya interrupted with a raised hand. Let's backtrack a bit. Where were you exactly? The Buddhist heaven. Heaven? Kagaya muttered under her breath, before saying out loud. Heaven? As in this completely different dimension where the energy made you feel liberated, thrilled, and anxious yet relaxed. Caused you to slip into a delirious state where you start to function completely on your own. That heaven. Naruto crossed his arms across his chest, tilted his head to the left, and squinted his eyes in thought. Well, you pretty much described what I felt when I was there. Fuck. Kagaya cursed so loudly that her voice echoed through the clearing, startling Naruto. You had to end up in that world. Damn it. Why could it not be anywhere else? Are you alright? Naruto asked, concerned by her sudden shift in behavior. Kagaya sighed and tried to relax. Naruto? Did Yahweh or Shiva not come to warn you to leave their world already? Or what about Nyx? Has she not tried to kill you? What about Gaia or the Titans? Are they not trying to kill you? I have no idea who they are, Naruto replied uncomfortably, all the questions about unknown people trying to kill him. Except one. That is Yahweh, but apparently he is dead. Kagaya blinked and then burst into laughter. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she clutched her stomach as she laughed uncontrollably. Hey. Why are you laughing? Naruto, Kagaya wheezed, her laughter dying down a little. You have to be joking. There is no way Yahweh is dead. He is dead. His literal child told me so, Naruto shot back confidently. Kagaya stiffened at Naruto's proclamation. Child, she muttered under her breath. A melancholic look appeared on her face, yet her lips curled into a happy smile. What is he or she like, if you don't mind me asking? Well, for one, apparently, he has many, but I only know one, Naruto said in a thoughtful tone. But as his mind wandered to Gabriel, a joyous smile lit up on his face. He began speaking, his voice filled with longing and his lips curled into a soft smile. Her name is Gabriel. She is kind, cheerful, and a confident woman. Her eyes are the most beautiful ones that I have seen. Her smell, it relaxes me. Her laughter, it makes me giddy. Her smile makes my heart flutter. I have these butterflies in my stomach when I see her fixing her hair. She really cares for everyone, and she has this aura around herself that makes me extremely comfortable. She is also great with children, and her smile, it is like looking at the radiant sun, it just lights up the world. She tries to do her best in every situation, and that already makes her so much better. Well, in a way, I guess she is just perfect, Yano. Kagaya smiled knowingly at him. Looks like someone is in love, she said teasingly. Naruto blushed and rubbed the back of his head. I don't really know, I have no idea what love truly feels like, Yano. Does her presence make you smile? Yeah, it does, I told you that already. Does thinking about her make you smile? I told that too. Do you miss her at random times of the day? Well, I do. Do you feel like you could spend a whole day talking to them? Well, duh. Well then, my dear child, you are in love, Kagaya concluded confidently. What, it's that simple? Well, yes, silly, Kagaya giggled. Love is probably the easiest feeling to gain, but the hardest to understand. Oh, I guess, I will figure out more when I go on a date with her. Date? What's that? Kagaya asked in confusion. Well, it's like an outing where you spend time with someone. I guess that's what a date is, Naruto tried to explain. I have never been really good with explanations. I understand what you were trying to get at, Kagaya said with a wise nod. Then if she is anything like Yahweh, she will like eating sweet things. And she should also like someplace quiet and peaceful. I would suggest you go somewhere where there are fewer people around, and you both can enjoy each other's presence. You sure know a lot about Yahweh, Naruto said, wiggling his eyebrows suggestively. Kagaya smiled sorrowfully. I guess I do, and no, I wasn't a stalker. But it is true that he is dead, Naruto repeated with a nod. Gabriel told me herself. Naruto, Kagaya paused before frowning. Who killed him? His eldest son, Naruto replied sadly. That seems even more outlandish, Kagaya murmured, depressed. How is that possible? No one should be able to kill him. Even during the height of the Chaos War, he was one of the few that even some of the best fighters amongst the Otsutsuki feared to go against. Yet, he was killed by his son. Well, that is what Gabriel told me, Naruto clarified. Kagaya grabbed her chin in thought. We are missing something here, she said in a serious tone. Something very big. Why are you so confident that Yahweh can't be killed? Was he some immortal? Naruto asked, confused by Kaguya's stubbornness regarding Yahweh's death. That is because he had the ability to see the future, Kagaya answered. He could see the future? Naruto muttered in surprise. Indeed. Kagaya nodded her head. A very broken ability, but one of his many nonetheless. It made him a formidable opponent because he knew what you were going to use against him before even you knew it yourself. I still remember how he managed to destroy some of the most powerful Otsutsukis during the Chaos War. So, you are saying Yahweh isn't dead? No, Kagaya shook her head negatively. But if he was killed, then there has to be something that everyone missed. There is no way I am believing that someone alone managed to get an upper hand on him. Maybe he was too shocked to know that his eldest son was going to kill him? Naruto hypothesized with a shrug of his shoulders. That caused Kagaya to frown even more. Maybe, Kagaya said doubtfully. You keep speaking about this Chaos War, Naruto said curiously. What exactly is that? I remember Great Red saying something about a war killing off many of the Otsutsukis. Is it related to that? You met Great Red too? You know Great Red too? How is he? Last time I met him, he was this tiny little thing that liked to appear grumpy all the time, Kagaya said with a wistful smile. Well, he is still grumpy, Naruto said with a deadpan. But, yeah, he is big now. Not as big as Kurama, but pretty big nonetheless. I see.